All right, let's call to order the regular council meeting here on Monday, April 17th, 2023. We are at the W.C. O'Neill Arena Complex in the council chambers. This meeting is being streamed through Zoom and Facebook. And of course, we have our friends from CHGO television here. If anyone has any questions this evening, in the Facebook chat will not be a question. You do have to email it in. It is pnopper@townofstanders.ca. And Mr. Knopper will make sure to put that in the actual live stream so people can see it there as well. And those on Zoom will also have an opportunity during question period to weigh in should you have any questions on anything pertaining to the agenda this evening. I see that all members of council are in attendance. Councillor Blanchard is attending virtually this evening, so great to have him here as well this evening. And before we get into the agenda, I do want to recognize that we're on the unceded traditional territory of the Beskoto-Magadi people. For the agenda, I will be looking to amend it, but let's get it on the table first. Could I have a mover to approve the agenda? I've got Councillor Heenan, seconded by Councillor Neal. Now that's on the table. There is two things I wanted to add in your packages. You would have received extra correspondence. One is regarding a staff report and direction on PID 15203359. So I'll be looking to add that under new business. And also there is a motion regarding the disposal of waste receptacles, which again will be under new business. So I'll be looking for someone to amend the agenda. And it is important to note it is on the agenda, but we will be going into closed session as per section 68(1)(f), which is regarding legal opinion or solicitor privilege information. So council, could I have a mover to amend the agenda? I got Councillor Harland and seconded by, I'll give that one to Deputy Mayor. It was close, Councillor Hurdle. So Deputy Mayor seconded that. Is there any other changes or anything regarding the agenda? Okay, I'll call the question. All in favor of approving the agenda, please signify by saying aye. Okay, that has been amended and approved. Do I have to go back and approve it now or am I good? All good? Perfect. Thank you. Sometimes when you make a change, you have to go back and approve it after. Okay, disclosure of conflict of interest. Myself, I will be, believe it or not, declaring conflict of interest on the disposal of waste receptacles. I got Councillor Hurdle with a conflict.
Yeah, just in regards to the tourism accommodation levy opposite one.
Perfect. And you did last time, so you can recuse yourself that time. I've got Councillor Neal with one as well.
Yes, Your Worship. I'm going to recuse myself from the land use arrangement for the Viola Davidson.
Perfect. And same for you then on that one. Any other conflicts of interest this evening? Okay, so that's
just I don't know if you can see me or not.
Yeah, I can hear you, Councillor Blanchard. Go ahead.
It'd be the same for me. FA 230415 on the Viola issue.
Perfect. So both of you can recuse yourself at that time. So is there any others? Otherwise, we'll continue. That's 4. That's probably the most we've had in a while. All right. It's amazing which ones you just happen to have conflicts on, eh? Disposal of waste receptacles. Okay, we are now into presentations and we do have 3 this evening plus a full agenda. And although we appreciate all of our presenters being here in person, I just wanted to say that we will have to limit them to 10 minutes simply for the fact that we have to get our whole agenda in this evening. So at this particular time, I would welcome Wendy Brooks. She is the Homestay Administrator for Alngophone School District South. She's doing a presentation on New Brunswick International Student Program.
Good evening. Thank you for having us. So I also have Debbie Thomas with me, and she is the Regional Manager of MBISP South. So she's going to begin, and we will be 10 minutes.
We'll keep it to 10. Thank you very much for offering us the opportunity to come and speak with you this evening. Our goal is to bring awareness about the New Brunswick International Student Program. And we are from Sussex to St. Stephen. We have 240 students in our high schools, and we're looking to continue to grow. And with that, we want to bring awareness in our communities that we're here and that we're hoping to find new homestays and to help our international students recognize how beautiful a place that we live in and how wonderful it is to be a part of our communities. So tonight we have a quick presentation, and I guess I just want to say again, thank you for the opportunity.
Okay, so we are going to quickly go through these slides. So students come from all over the world, from different countries in the world, and they live with homestays. So a homestay, if you don't know, is a host. So just local host. It can be a single person, it can be a couple, it can be a huge family. They just get a criminal record check, and we go through an application process to make sure all is good, and then they can be a homestay for us. They attend public schools, and they also do volunteer work throughout our communities, and they join extracurricular activities throughout our schools and our communities. So we try to give them a true Canadian experience. And actually, Canada is one of the world's most popular study destinations, and in all over the world for international students to come. And right now, presently, Debbie just said a number, but it's 224, which is our amount of students that we have right now from St. Stephen's to Sussex. And right now, we have students from 22 different countries, and we've listed a few there. And yeah, my son, we moved here from Ontario, and he was like, why on earth would they want to come to New Brunswick? But, and I asked them that, wondering why, what brings them here. And they just always have great things to say. They think it's beautiful here. They get to experience different things that they wouldn't experience in other places. Some of them have curled for the first time. They've gone skiing for the first time, put on skates for the first time. And, one thing one student had said in one of our meetings was that he loves how safe it is here. He said you can actually go for a walk at 1 o'clock in the morning. Not that we promote that, but they do feel safe here, and they love it here. They love New Brunswick, and they love Canada. So we're just going to talk about some of the benefits of having students here in our community. It's not only beneficial for them, but it's beneficial for us as a community. And so they increase our immigration and our population. They teach our communities more about other cultures and people and languages and diversity. And tonight, my daughter wouldn't want me to point her out, but she's here with me tonight. And her best friend at school right now is an international student. And we've learned so much. She's in our home all the time, and she's from Mexico. And we've learned so much about that culture. And our kids are learning that in their schools from going to school with these students, because of course I cannot afford to send my daughter to Thailand or to Japan or maybe Mexico. She's asking me right now if she can go to Mexico, but instead of sending our students to all those places, we are bringing those places to them and to us, and it has been very beneficial for our students. They contribute to our education system. We talked about culturally, but also financially. So depending on how many students are in a particular school, a certain amount of money goes towards each. Well, I'm going to let Debbie say that specifically about the money part. She knows a little bit more about that than me.
So each student that comes into our community brings about $25,000 with them, as far as bringing monies into our school system, into our communities, and into our district. And the beauty of the monies that go to the school district or to the actual school, it's not money that's already designated. In our provincial government, we have monies for books, we have monies for various things, but this is money that our schools can use in various ways for the support of different activities that they might want to do in the school. So that's a huge benefit for our schools, on top of the cultural piece as well. But that's a large amount of money for each one of our students coming into our communities, $25,000.
Yeah, and that's where the majority of their tuition goes, from my understanding. So, and also helping our economy, they shop when they're here. They buy things for their families. Their families come to visit them during March break, during Christmas break, and they spend money and they do things that they've never done before. And like as tourists and transportation. And so that brings more money into our economy as well as more jobs. A lot of them choose to go to college and university in New Brunswick. We're actually about to take them on a tour, which we do every year, to show them the different schools, the different opportunities that they could have. So we do promote that. And some of them even immigrate here. So this is the big thing, and this is why we're here today, how you can help us. So, and why we wanted to present this to you. So of course, you can all host a student. That would be a big help to us. And also tell your family and friends about MBISP. And so we've gone to a few different councils already, and it's been amazing to us how many people don't know that we exist. So that is what we're trying to do. We're trying to make the communities around Southern New Brunswick more aware that we are here. We would love opportunities to display our brochures and welcome signs throughout the community for our students to welcome them here, and also to make our communities more aware that they exist. And also posting our ads on possibly your social media accounts, your websites. And even if you see our ads, I'm not sure if any of you have, we have new ads right now because we have a new company that is helping us with ads. And so if you see them, share them, and that will also help us with community awareness. I already said. And also by inviting us to different things such as council meetings. And I did, as I said, I'm coming from Ontario a year ago, so I'm not really familiar with the different community events that go on. So if we can be aware of those, if you can invite us and let us know what's happening in your community, that maybe our students have more volunteer opportunities, or even to be able to be seen in different community events so that the community is more aware. So that's really why we're here today, is just to make you aware that we're here and how great this opportunity is for our communities. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your presentation. I can speak personally. I know a lot of probably members of council know people that actually welcome these students into their home, and it really does enrich their life. And I will say that, you know, bringing more diversity to Charlotte County it's got a lot of value in it as well. And the families that bring these students in, a lot of them do it every single year because it really truly enriches their life. So I know sometimes you're searching for families, so I think leveraging town social media, website, perhaps even a mail out when we do maybe it's a newsletter or something, and there might be an opportunity to get that out, because it will literally reach all households within the peninsula if we do a mail out. So there is plenty of opportunity to partner for sure. So appreciate drawing awareness to it is key. I think all members of council was aware of the program because there's so many people in our lives that actually participate in it. Is there any questions though? Mark would be a great example, actually. He's got one. He's got his. She's fading in and out, and she's actually a very good babysitter as well. I've leveraged her before. Councillor Blanchard, over to you.
So I'll just take off my filter here, see if that helps there. There we go. Yeah, I thought just I'd speak up. Our family can speak from experience. I would say thank you for the presentation, but it's a very positive program. We've had 7 students over the years, and it's been great for our family. This is our most recent student there. She's been with us since September. This is Lede. She's from Madrid. She's with us until the end of the year. And as much as I kid about it, as much as I kid with her, to the contrary, it's been another really positive experience for our family. So kudos to everyone, and thank you for the presentation.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Blanchard. Councillor Harlan.
Thanks for the presentation.
Thank you.
It's nice to see you, Debbie. The other hat I wear is I manage the wellness center at the other end of this building. And so if we wanted posters and brochures, where would we access them? Excellent. I'd be happy to have some. Yeah.
Yes, I think you have my email, and I can also give you Debbie's as well, and then we can get you anything you need.
Yeah,
Wonderful,
Paul can
thanks.
circulate that as well. Yeah, Mr. Knopper can.
Thank you.
Any other questions? No, but thank you for the presentation. I know a bunch of your students went up to Kingsbury Garden for the pumpkin pie eating competition, and someone was wondering how I was able to have 8 countries represented. It was because all the students went up. They thought it was legitimately
Wonderful.
international competition. So anyway,
That's
all
good to
seriousness,
hear.
thank you very much for your presentation this evening.
Thank you again.
The next presentation will be with our town planner, Xander Gopen. He'll be making a presentation on amendment MP 20-07 to the town of St. Andrews Municipal Plan, MP 20-01, which is for Henry Hansen. It's PID 01325505, which a lot of us know as the corner on Rose Lane. Mr. Gopen, good to have you in person.
Thank you, Your Worship.
About a month ago, I thought he was online and he was in the room with us, but the floor is yours, sir.
All right, so this is a public presentation based on a requested municipal plan amendment. Go to the next slide. And I wasn't sure if Mr. Hansen was going to be here, but he is here. I don't know if there'll be any questions that he would be able to answer, but it is always good when the applicant is present. So currently, this is an unserviced 13.5-acre lot abutting Bar Road and Rose Lane, although due to some complications with Rose Lane, it's not a street that can be fronted on. It's a strange situation. It's currently in the estate residential zone, which is kind of a large lot residential zone. And it does allow for a proposed subdivision that has been submitted for that use. But there's some municipal plan policies and map aspects that would make that currently not possible, and hence the amendment. So that area is in that PID is in a residential growth area, and that residential growth area on the municipal plan map refers back to a policy that any property developed in that area needs to go through rezoning to a high density multiple residential zone. So the idea at the time, council of the day thought they should reserve land throughout the municipality for higher density residential development. And this is kind of the end of that area, the far end of it. So in order to have a one lot subdivision for an estate residential use, what would be a single family home, or there's a few other things you can do there, but none of them would be a high density development. So therefore, that one lot subdivision is not currently allowed because of the municipal plan. And there has been some back and forth with the applicant and with the applicant's agents on trying to get a plan of subdivision that meets the town subdivision bylaw, and we finally did get there. And so we had to table something I think a few weeks ago, but we're here. So both this lot and the remaining lot would have frontage on Bar Road, so the Rose Lane thing is not an issue. And the next few slides are just some images of the lot. You may have driven past it before. Go down to the street view. I think there's maybe a few less trees there now. Keep going. The zoning, it's a state residential, as I said before. The next one is the municipal plan map, and you can see the property highlighted in red. It's, as I said, the end of that residential growth area. And the next map is the site plan that was submitted for the tentative plan of subdivision. And that subdivision can't happen until the municipal plan is amended. And on the next slide, this is the basically map for the municipal plan amendment, which would remove that portion that's to be subdivided from the residential growth area. And the next slide talks about the municipal plan policies. Basically, I went through this already. It talks about the map and how it's this residential growth area. And it talks about what that growth area is supposed to be, what the process is for developing in that area. So I don't need to go through that word for word. And what's, I think, important for council to consider is how this would affect the entire residential growth area. Is it compromising that whole area, or is there still that potential there? In my opinion, there is still that potential. There's road frontage, so it could be accessed. There's not always, but there is the potential for Rose Lane to be widened, which would allow for more development there too. This plan doesn't impact that. And the remainder would still be regulated by the residential growth area. I know I've talked about development scheme bylaws before. There's always the opportunity for council to give private landowners and developers a bit more direction with something like that. And this has been a challenging lot to develop. There's been lots of discussions over the years. And so something council can consider for the future outside of this amendment is what could be directed for the rest of those lands if that's something council does want to get involved in. But for tonight, it's really just about that one PID being removed from the area. And it's to facilitate a one lot subdivision, which I believe the lot would be sold, and as an estate residential lot could be developed for a single 2-family or 3-family home. So that's pretty much it.
Thank you very much, Mr. Gopen. Is there any questions from any member of council regarding this presentation? I know we did have it in our packages last meeting. And also I do note that Mr. Hansen is there in case he would like to answer any questions that are before council. Any questions? Okay, I'm seeing none. We did have the material in advance, so I've had time to review it. So thank you very much for the presentation. It is important to note that that is a requirement for us to do the presentation as part of the process. So we'll be going through the next steps at the next regular meeting. So thank you very much, Mr. Gopen.
Welcome.
You might as well stay close because I'd like to introduce the next presenter. It is Xander Gopen. He's a senior planner. He's doing a presentation on the processes for planning review and adjustment committee procedures and the assessment in planning appeal board. So council, I just wanted to hit that home that I know that there is a specific development that a number of people in the community are interested in, as well as I've had members of council approach me about council having direction on that. I just wanted to, again, bring home that because this is a legal process, this is about the process and not the decision itself. So our planner will not be able to answer any specific questions about that this evening, and neither will council for that matter. But council, we will have a conversation, but it is a closed session item. So with that being said, I think it is important to get the understanding of all council of this, because we haven't had really much in front of us on this, either the past council or this one. So thank you very much again, Xander, for being here, and we'll pass it over to you.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yeah, and I appreciate that preamble. As someone who will be a potential witness for the appeal board, I really can't speak about that specific case at all. But I think it is very important for council to understand what their role, as well as roles of other people and bodies in the various municipal planning processes and legislation that happen. So it's a good opportunity to review that. It's good for myself, it's good for council, and I think while I can't speak about the case directly, it will hopefully help people feel like there is a process that is being followed. There is the opportunity for evidence to be heard, for all of these things to happen. It's just that's at the appeal board. It's really not something that I can discuss outside of that. So I will try and explain the reasons for that as well. So the province, I'm not going to get into the federal government at all here. They really have no role in planning. But the province, both for planning and for many other matters, dictates what municipalities can and can't do. You may have heard the expression municipalities are creatures of the province. That's very true in Canada. It's true in New Brunswick. What municipalities can and can't do is outlined in various provincial acts and regulation. The one that is most relevant for me is the Community Planning Act. That's what says municipalities can have municipal plans, zoning bylaws, subdivision bylaws, various other bylaws as well, including building bylaws, which I think is being discussed as well tonight. It also, the province through that act dictates what can be in those various bylaws, and it also sets up processes for appeals. It sets up various bodies to deal with various matters, and it dictates a separation of power and of power. So the next slide talks about this. And there's some here that are more relevant than others. But I'll start, the Community Planning Act sets out these 4 roles very clearly. They're addressed in different sections. They're defined, they're referred to. A development officer is somebody like myself, other people who work in the office. We administer bylaws. We approve things that are by right. So they're essentially, we look at the bylaw, we look at the application. Does everything fit? Is every box checked? If it is, we give an approval. It goes off to a building inspector or as just an approval. We can do very minor variances in-house. Again, those are dictated by the Community Planning Act. And typically there's something like a small dimensional variance where we know a neighbor is not concerned about it. Other than that, we don't make decisions. We make recommendations, and we make those recommendations to the other three, powers involved in planning decisions. So PRAC or PAC, they serve very similar functions. They're given the same types of powers. The way that they're set up, slightly different. One's a committee of council, one's a committee of the Service Commission. But in terms of what powers they have and how they make their decisions and what happens as a result of the decisions, they are the same. So they deal with variances, including dimensional variances, similar to or compatible with uses. So use variances, temporary uses. They will deal with extending non-conforming uses. They have some role in subdivisions. And then where the arrows are, they're making recommendations to council. So something council may be familiar with when you are making a bylaw under the Community Planning Act, you will ask for PAC's recommendation. It's a motion you do. PAC has 30 days to give you a recommendation. You can, hopefully you are paying some attention to that recommendation, but it is at the end of the day a recommendation. Council can make their own decision. There are also recommendations on some aspects of subdivisions, but that's really a one-way street. There is no role for council to be involved in a PRAC or a PAC decision. Council's role is to make and amend bylaws, and that's a very powerful role. Those bylaws are dictated by the Community Planning Act, what can be in them, what types of bylaws. At least as far as planning goes, there's other acts like the Local Governance Act that also impact what the municipality can do. But when you make your municipal plan, your secondary plan, zoning bylaws, subdivision bylaws, that's very clearly council's power. You ask for your recommendations from PAC, but you make those bylaws, you amend them. I will give you recommendations, but that's as far as my role goes there. There's some other bylaws from other acts, local governance. There's building code, administration, heritage conservation. If you ever, if we ever get to a heritage bylaw, that would be under the Heritage Conservation Act. And then you amend your bylaws. So we already heard a municipal plan amendment presentation. That's part of the amendment process that you're following. So you'll ask for PAC's views on that. And then there's subdivisions as well that council is directly involved in, especially when there's municipal infrastructure, land for public purposes, that kind of thing. The province is really at the top of the hierarchy, as you could see in that pyramid. And as I've said before, they're really dictating what municipalities can and can't do with their planning legislation. There may, I think there will be statements of provincial interest. These will be kind of very general planning legislation that all other planning bylaws will have to conform with. They deal with rural districts. So if there's rural plans or rural plan amendments in rural districts, those are provincial regulations. So they are amended and made by the province. And then what I'll speak more about is it's the province's responsibility to handle appeals. And that doesn't mean that it's the province, the government that's doing it, but they have set up a clear process and clear roles for how to do that. And that's the Assessment and Planning Appeal Board. And if there are appeals of that body, the province is still involved. Those go to the Court of King's Bench. So just like any other legal matter, you can continue to appeal it, and that can go all the way to the Supreme Court of Canada with a planning matter. So the next slide, please. So I know there's been some questions. Is the appeal board a body of the Service Commission? No, it definitely is not. It's a appointed body of the province. It's made up of a chairperson who represents the whole province, 3 vice chair people who represent the whole province. They must be lawyers with 5 years of good standing. And there's also appointed members, maybe not lawyers, but they represent the various regions. We're in Region D, all the way from St. Stephen to Sussex. So the chairperson will likely be the same person throughout the province, but The other appointed members, they try and have regional representation. But that doesn't necessarily mean St. Andrews. I don't know if there are any members from St. Andrews. That's the appeal board. They do their thing, but they're a bit of a black box. So I'm trying to give you an overview as best as I can. And I know that the town staff has also reached out to the chairperson, which is a good thing to do as well, to get their feedback. But for a specific case or a panel, you have a chair and up to 2 other members from the region. They do want local representation as much as possible. And the panel considers facts. That's really all they're considering. They look at evidence, they look at the matter of the case, they hear representations from witnesses, people who have made the appeal, the people who are being appealed, folks like myself who were involved in that decision. And they're not acting on behalf of the government. They're not acting on behalf of the Service Commission, of the municipality. They're really a judicial body looking at facts and laws and how have those things worked or how have they not worked, and then they make a decision based on that. So they're not civil servants. They're not paid by the province. They get a very small honorarium and stipend, but it's a completely apolitical role. So next slide. Sometimes they're referred to as quasi-judicial. The more I've come to understand them, I would say they are judicial. An appeal is, it's part of a legal process. As I said, it can go all the way to the Supreme Court of Canada. There are some famous planning law cases, at least famous for people like me, about things like oil spills and shark fin soup. So they go all the way up and are very legal in nature. They're only concerned with evidence. They place limits on what is acceptable. I've already made numerous submissions to them. Appellants and appellees will make submissions and be called to give evidence. They can make inquiries under the Inquiry Act to request additional information. And you don't see submissions from non-involved parties. There's no amicus briefs, no kind of friend of the court type of thing from parties that are not directly affected by the case. So they're apolitical. And to that point, if a council was seen as pressuring a PAC, there might be grounds for appeal in that decision alone. It's really supposed to be, these powers are separate. The PACs are not supposed to be political. There's a reason the Community Planning Act has separated these powers to the extent that they have. And as I've said, it can go all the way up to the very top. So I can't really speak about the case, but I hope this has made it clear that this is just the beginning of what could potentially be a long process. And I know that people would like decisions and answers sooner, and it's taking a while. I would like it to go faster myself. But there are people who are very qualified to deal with this, who will be dealing with it. And I think council and the public should rest assured that this matter will be dealt with, and it will be dealt with competently. And that's really all there is to it.
Thank you very much, Mr. Gopen, for the presentation. I have just a couple general questions, and I'll pass it over to other members of council in regards to the procedure. When a PRAC or a PAC approves something subject to terms and conditions, who ultimately is the body that makes sure that those terms and conditions are upheld on any decisions?
So they are like a bylaw. So it's up to the body that is enforcing that bylaw. So if you're inheriting a rural plan in that area, it's going to be the municipality.
So the municipality themselves would be okay.
Yeah.
And if there is anything that's contrary to terms and conditions, what options does the municipality have? Is it a civil issue at that point, or is it an issue where the municipality could shut down an Airbnb, for example?
It's like a bylaw enforcement matter. So like the other bylaw enforcement matters you deal with, it's like I think the Airbnb that you referenced, it would be a municipal process, not a civil one.
Because usually with a bylaw, you have like fines that would be
Yeah.
set up, but in this particular case, you probably don't. Would that be
It's under the
something?
Community Planning Act.
Okay, so it'll lay it out for us what
Yeah.
the fines would be if it was contrary to term. Okay.
Yeah, it's not a process I've ever been super involved with, but there are some other enforcement matters I think the municipality has been involved with. That would be a good reference.
Perfect. And I don't have a lot of experience with this process. There's actually in my 6 years in council, only been maybe a couple times it's even been referenced. I'm not sure if you're able to answer this, but what constitutes an interested third party and like?
I don't know, and my experience is really limited to case law, basically. So I get sent all of the appeals that happen in the province, and when they're in English, I read them. It'd be nice if they translated them, but I have never seen other parties involved that were not the appellants, the appellee, or witnesses who are being called by the body. So municipalities are involved because sometimes they're the people being appealed, or they might be doing the appealing, but I can't really say beyond that.
Perfect. No, I know that's a tough question, but I wanted to get your insight into it. Council, any other questions on the process? Council Harlan.
Thanks, Mr. Gopen, for
Yeah.
the presentation. It was helpful. I just have two questions. One is, when it comes to the appeal board making a final decision, is there a time frame on that? Because I will say this, holy Lipton, because this has been a long process just to get a date. And so the whole process, there's no time frame by which the appeal board is required to have a decision made and provide that decision to community.
Not that I'm aware of. It's not anything in the Community Planning Act. I read through the APAB Act, and there was nothing I saw there. 6 months is not unusual to wait for a hearing.
To wait for a hearing. And
Yeah.
what's your experience in terms of waiting for a decision?
It really depends on the matter. Sometimes really, haven't been involved directly in a lot, and it depends on the complexity. Sometimes they're very fast, but they're very straightforward and nobody is disputing any facts or anything. There's nothing more to look at. It's really just a matter of procedure. But in a more complex case with various parties and various opinions, it could take some time. They definitely do their due diligence.
Okay. And my second question is related to the interested third party. So if an interested third party were to submit a letter, that could be, I'm assuming that could be done, and then the appeal court or the appeal board determines whether or not it is to be heard or
Yeah.
reviewed or.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, they have they set their own kind of
Right.
their own body. They make their rules. They're governed by acts, but I believe they have their own rules and of procedure and operating.
Okay, great. Thanks.
Yeah.
Thank you, Council Harlan. Any other member of council? All right, well, thank you very much.
You're very welcome.
Mr. Gopen, appreciate the presentations this evening. And I know there's a few other items that are pertaining to you, so you'll be at the end of the table for us. So thank you very much. The approval of minutes previous meeting, we did that last, so we are into communications. Let me just scan ahead to my package. So the first one is actually proclamation. It is that Council of the Town of Sanders proclaims the month of May 2023 be known as Lyme Disease Awareness Month. So I'll be looking for a mover for that proclamation. I've got Councillor Gumashell, a seconder. I've got Councillor Hurdle. Discussion on that proclamation. Okay, seeing none, all in favor of approving that proclamation, please signify by saying aye. And that's everybody. So this is the Town of St. Andrews proclamation for Lyme Disease Awareness Month for May 2023. Whereas Lyme disease is one of the fastest growing vector-borne illnesses in the world, and whereas the population of ticks, the primary vector for the transmission of Lyme disease in New Brunswick and other parts of Canada, is growing and expanding in New Brunswick, and whereas the number of New Brunswickers suffering from Lyme disease is increasing from one year to the next, and whereas awareness plays a key role in making this disease known to the public, as well as the steps to take prevent contracting the disease, and now therefore be it resolved that the town of St. Andrews hereby proclaims May 2023 as Lyme Disease Awareness Month, and now therefore I, Brad Henderson, Mayor of the town of St. Andrews, support the proclamation of Lyme Disease Awareness Month for the town of St. Andrews, and signed on Monday, April 17th, 2023, and the witness whereof I have set my hand and caused the seal of mayoralty for the town of St. Andrews to be affixed here too. So very relevant, relevant proclamation in our particular community. So thank you very much, council. The next one is a request. It's from the Huntington Society of Canada, and it's a request to light it up for 2023. Huntington disease is a fatal genetic disorder that has no cure. HD is often described as having ALS, Parkinson, and Alzheimer's all at the same time. Sites across Canada are helping us raise awareness for HD and juvenile HD by lighting up in blue and purple respectively. And they're wondering if the town of St. Andrews will help us raise awareness for HD by lighting up Water Street, King Street. In this case, it would be Town Hall in blue and or purple for one or more days in May 2023. So council just looking for a consensus if that is direction for staff, if that is okay to do so. Anyone contrary minded? Didn't think so. So it is good to draw awareness, but council is fine with staff discretion on which days that would be. And the last one under communications is we did receive a letter, well-written, very well written from Kim Reeder. It's regarding the small modular reactor presentations. And if you give me a quick second, I will just a lot of good information, but what she is wondering is that using this letter to ask council to pass a motion to write a letter of support by May 1st, 2023 for a request to the federal government for the ARC 100 SMR to undergo a federal impact assessment under the Impact Assessment Act, IAA. So council, looking for a little bit of direction on this one. We did not send any request in support of it, but I'm looking for some direction from you. Personally, being completely candid and honest, I don't understand enough about it to personally have a view one way or another. But if any member of council feels strongly and would like to speak to this, I think it would be the appropriate time now. But again, no letter has been sent on this. I do think a particular request like this might be better for the Regional Service Commission, as it has greater impact on all communities around versus just it being a St. Andrews municipal issue. But over to you for any opinion if anyone would like to see us go ahead with that. Okay, I'm not seeing.
I think that would, excuse me, Your Honor, I would like to think that would be a wonderful thing to put it up to the RC level and see if they could take it forward.
Okay, anyone feel contrary to that? That would be, I'm not seeing any, so that will be the recommendation that I follow, council. And again, it is tight timeline, but if anyone feels contrary, feel free to pull me aside or whatever to discuss about it further. But there is, it's definitely, I know you all have, but the letter in with the background and all of that is very good knowledge for that, because we did hear from NB Power as well on that project. All right, so that is it for communications. We did the staff report and financial report last time. So we're in the introduction, consideration, and passing of bylaws and motions. The first one is under Deputy Mayor Akaji. It's not a motion, but it is the review and discussion of significant capital projects. I think it would make sense to pass it over to our CAO, Mr. Spear, at this time to comment on that.
Thank you, Worship. Council, I'm not going to go through the whole report as it's a bit lengthy, but I guess for those listening and in the audience here, that we've got some significant capital projects that we're looking at over the next few years. Ones that currently, the biggest one, of course, is the update of the wharf and Market Square, which could have a combined value of about $8 million. We also have the ladder truck, which is currently on purchase, which was purchased about a year ago. And so, you know, it's about a year away from being received. Just was talking to the fire chief today, but it's got a value of about $1.5 million. Then other things that are before us is the widening of Prince of Wales Street, which is just a suggestion, hasn't been approved. We do have some funding request in for it, but hasn't been widely discussed with council yet. We also have 3 pieces of public works equipment that just to maintain the level of services over the next 5 or 6 years, or in 2027, have to be replaced to a tune of about $1 million in today's dollars. So there's already about $2.4 million in authorized billing for these things. And we have to come up with some of them about $3.5 million worth of additional funding in the next 5 or 6 years. And so the big project right now before us, though, is back to the wharf. And so looking at our debt to the ratio, assuming our tax rates remain close to the same, our debt as a percent of the budget right now is about 4%. If we do all those projects by the end of 2027, it'll be at 8%, which by the provincial standards is still healthy, but I'm not sure if it's something I would recommend. There's 2 different things. And so we might have to make a decision on what projects are worthy and which ones we may defer or just cancel outright in order to pursue other activities. But before you tonight is really a question about continuing with Market Square. So in the next motion, I'm asking you to make a motion for to authorize further borrowing for that. The good news is if we get authorized to do it, which I'm confident we would, if council decides not to follow through with the project or reduces the cost substantially some way by, changing the project, we don't have to borrow that money. All it really is like a pre-authorization for a mortgage, if you will, is an equivalent. And the only reason it's good to do it is because the board that's in charge of it meets again in June, which we have to get the application in over the next week, and they don't meet again until the fall. From our standpoint, I've been saying for a while now, although it's not a hard deadline, but if council approves the wharf, and we have to talk about it next month after strategic planning sessions, I would really love to start phase 1 this fall. And so I'd like to have all the ducks in a row, and financing would be the number 1. We are still waiting for financing from the federal and provincial governments on the additional. We were approved for some and they're looking at it. It's gone to Infrastructure Canada. For the province, they'd make it a condition of the borrowing that we get approval for that. If we don't, they just cancel the approval outright. But right now, it's to make you aware of all the potential projects before us. But this wharf project, which is no surprise to you, has become extremely expensive. But again, the town is mostly aware of it and mostly supports it, but it's starting to get up there that it, you'll have to determine if you want to do any further levels of consultation and if we can amend the project a bit to try to get the cost down.
Thank you very much, Mr. Spear. It is good to highlight the concern over rising debt. I think we all know the wharf project that had to happen in order for it to happen. But I guess the point that really is drilled home here is we have a motion coming up, but if we do approve that motion, it does not mean that we're going ahead with it. I think when we do our strategic priority session this weekend, I think we really need to talk about which of these projects we really want to complete and which of these are nice to have. I don't often reference, but the late Greg Thompson once said about a Lamborghini. He said, even if someone else is paying for half of it, it still doesn't mean I can afford the Lamborghini, right? So as much as we would like to have all this stuff, even with government dollars, like in the wharf, about $5.7 million of external funding, but we're still on the hook for over $2 million. But then you add these other projects on, despite how it's good that other levels of government are participating, it doesn't mean we can do them all because we do have to manage that debt. Thank you very much. I think on page 102 of your package really breaks out the debt as percentage of budget. I think that is something for us to heavily consider. And when we get into the strategic priorities, I think that would give us some time to figure out which of these we truly want to accomplish and which of these, although we really like to do, that we just simply can't afford, would be the way that I would look at that. Council, is there any questions on the comments by our CAO?
I certainly do. Could I ask a couple questions?
Absolutely.
To Chris? The debt that we're looking at and the costs, is that a surprise? Is that something new? Or is this something that's been projected for a while?
it's been projected for a while, so if you've looked at budgets even from 2 years ago, with some of these projects that council would like to do, we've been warning them or advising them, might be a better thing, that the debt load will be significant and that while the province would probably approve it, because what I wrote in here is that the province, they think a healthy municipality can carry about 10% of the budget in debt, and they don't worry too much about it. The bylaws, or sorry, the provincial acts allow up to 20%, but they really make you beg for it, anything above that. And for any new recreation projects, they have concerns if it's a core service. So let's say you had 8% borrowing, needed another 4% for a new fire truck, just as a, for instance, they'd be more open to that than if you decided you wanted to build, I don't want to pick on anything, get a new ferry to drive around the point 5 times a day or something that's not necessarily part of the core services of the town. And so they'd look at different things like that. Again, even potentially doing all of these, we're still deemed to be in a healthy position, but it's still a significant increase in the debt load that the town has traditionally carried in the past.
So we projected, you've projected this 3.5 million in debt for a couple of years.
So original cost of the project was 5 million in 2019. When we re-looked at the estimates 2 years ago, it jumped up to 8 million. So that is a new piece of the pie that has come on.
So if 2 years ago, it's at 8 million, and with the outlandish increases that we've seen even in our own town here, how do we even theorize that the new price for like the wharf would be 8 million, 10 million, 12 million? How do we even start talking about a project when we don't have a current cost?
Well, so we had engineers do the estimates. And so they did a conceptual design estimate early on to come up with the 5.5 million. I should also remind everybody that was based on a rock wall type of wharf, where it's just armor stone with a concrete and asphalt. The townsfolk at the time didn't think that was appropriate for our downtown, and so we've changed the model. Looks a little more traditional, but it's still concrete with some wood pilings and things that'll make it look a little more traditional, which increased the cost. But the engineering department went back, or the engineering firm, and did what would be called a Class D budget, which is more final. And they also went right to contractors to get what they would estimate the cost would be and stuff to come up with that. The truth is, until it actually goes to tender, we won't know what the final cost is. But this is their best estimate at this point in time.
So with a debt of 3.5 million, this council in 2022, that you guys reduced your mill rate, knowing that you're going to be 3.5 million short.
Well, it's two different things though, because although we reduced the mill rate, it was because our assessments went up so high. So our total tax revenue actually went up by 5%. It's just that the assessment rate was, I think, 10 or 12% last year. And so if we even had held the mill rate, people would have been paying 10 to 12% more. But instead, they followed, and they have followed, a plan of about 5% increases in total tax dollars, whether it was through assessment mill rate increases or just assessment value increases on new builds would be the best scenario, or increases to current properties. And they were just continuing to follow that over the years.
But I don't think you're getting what I'm saying. Like, you're projected a 3.5 million shortage, and then you're looking at borrowing 3.5 million or finding a new resource for it, but you lowered your mill rate.
Yeah.
You lowered your tax base, you lowered your tax rate, and now we're in a situation where we're looking for 3.5 million.
Yeah.
So I can go ahead, Mr. Spear. So when you have a capital project, you don't pay for it necessarily in the year that it's incurred. Like if you build the wellness center, for example, the town's portion, you don't fund it in that year. Just like your own house, you do pay it back over a period of time. So the mill rate in the town of St. Andrews did go down. It's important to note that the municipality itself did not set that mill rate, that it was done by the province of New Brunswick. But even though the mill rate went down, every household almost in St. Andrews paid more because the assessments went up even higher. So our tax base did not go down. Take Shamcook Bayside out of it, our tax base still went up over 5%. because of the assessment value. So versus the current taxpayer getting hit with an assessment of 15% or 20% plus us upping the mill rate, what we did is we took it down. So it's a more manageable number, but it's still, if you look at the average bill in the town of St. Andrews over the last 8 years, every year it has, for the average payer, continued to go up. So we have grown our tax base consistently. It's just how much is too much to grow when you look at how challenging times are.
I get challenging times. My own personal situation in two assessment increases, we've had a 32% assessment increase, and then our mill rate went up this year, this past year. So not a lot of sympathy if we're looking at a deficit and borrowing 3.5 million.
Yeah. But whether we up the mill rate or not, you're still going to have a 3.5 billion. It's not going to pay itself back in 1 year. You're going to have to borrow money to fix this wharf. We can't recover the 3.5 million in 1 year, but I get your point. You think we should have held it the same, knowing that we have a debt ratio going up. That would be something for council to debate. How much is too much to expect the taxpayer of our municipality to increase in 1 year? So, and it is important to know that you look at these debt levels, and they did project it for the next 5 years, but we see those fluctuate. Sometimes projects are paid off and it dips back down. It's all over the amortization length of time that you're paying it. So this is not, these numbers are, to your question, are not a surprise to the town of St. Andrews. We knew to fix that wharf because of, even with a government contribution, $2 million is a significant amount of money. $1 million is a significant amount of money
I'm
for
glad
a
to hear you
small
say that.
community. So these decisions haven't been lightly, but the truth is, as we debate these decisions, the price tag has continued to go up. And to your point, there's a lot of things that need to check the box in order for this project to happen. I wouldn't be surprised if when we go, we don't hear that the price went up again, because that's what we're experiencing. There is certain things as a municipality that we had to do. There was a study on birds underneath the wharf. There was First Nations consultation. All these things are definitely required of good things, but over the course of us working on it, and what happened during COVID is that's where these new estimates have come from. Originally, we thought it was 5 million. Now it's 7.8. Not all of our funding partners want to pay the difference. We were fortunate where one did. Was it RDC or is it
Infrastructure Canada.
Infrastructure Canada, rather, they upped it, but they didn't up it for the same percentage. So it's straight up. We're not the only municipality. You go around municipalities across New Brunswick right now with the cost of things. Municipalities are going to have to be very, very smart to make the dollars and cents. And we're just talking about capital projects, infrastructure. If you get into our utility fund, it's even scarier right now. So we are going to continually have to look at balancing tax revenue versus what the needs are of this community. And that's why the best thing we could do is actually growing and seeing these multiple residential units will help grow our tax base, not on the back completely of our current residents. So I hope that kind of clarifies. I see your point, but the taxpayer of the old municipality, and again, this council didn't set the mill rate, but they are paying more. The tax did increase this town. It just, lowering the mill rate had people, instead of paying maybe 10%, might have paid 8% in some cases.
Thank you.
No problem. Any other questions? Councilor Ware.
Yes. This is really an application of financing. First step in any capital project. I'm sorry. First step in any capital project, and then the costs and the final approval on it will come at a later time.
Correct. And council controls the step all the way.
All good, Councilor Ware. Thank you very much. Any other councilor? All right, well, that kind of leads us into the next motion. So Deputy Mayor Akaji, over to you.
Thank you, Your Worship and Council. My first one is FA 230417, and it's the Municipal Capital Borrowing Board application. And the
Deputy
back,
Mayor, sorry, I don't want to.
am I in the wrong one?
No, you're doing everything right. I noticed a typo that I made, so it doesn't get you tongue tied.
Okay,
After the word received on the top line, it should be word, not work.
I thought I already changed. that.
Okay, great.
Okay.
Just to be a teacher.
Sorry. Background, in 2019, the town of St. Andrews received word of our successful application to upgrade the Market Wharf and Square. Due to construction increases and a change in the type of facility council wanted, from armor stone style to concrete, the cost escalated from 5 million to 7.8 million. We anticipate other levels of government funding in the amount of $5,746,000, leaving the town to fund approximately 2 million towards the project. In 2020, the Council of the Day acquired 1.3 million in funding from the Municipal Capital Borrowing Board. Staff is requesting an additional $550,000 be requested to have the funding available for the Market Wharf and Square project if council proceeds. So our motion is this, that the municipality of the town of St. Andrews submits to the Municipal Capital Borrowing Board an application for the authorization to borrow for a capital expense for the following term and amount. And it says the purpose is the Market Wharf for $550,000, and the term would be for 25 years. And I so move this, your worship.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Could I have a seconder for that motion, Councillor Harland? And this one is open for debate. Okay, call the question. All in favor of approving this motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
That's everybody that has been carried, and we are on to the next one. And I think there is a couple of conflict of interest, so we'll give just a moment for the impacted individuals to recuse themselves into the washroom.
It's gonna be crowded in there. Just you? Oh, yes, Councillor
Hopefully it's
Neal's,
not occupied.
Councillor Neal's on, no, Councillor Blanchard's on Zoom.
Yeah, he shut his camera and mic off. I think we're good, Deputy Mayor.
Okay, so FA 230415. And it is land use arrangement for Viola Davidson, Department of Fisheries and Ocean, Government of Canada. The background is this: with the ongoing use of the Market Wharf by the Department of Fisheries and Oceans, DFO, they are seeking a land use arrangement, LUA, to formalize a longer term use of space. Provided is a draft copy of the LUA that has been in development between DFO and the town staff. The LUA outlines terms of the LUA, renewal clause, financial arrangements, the use of the site, town requirements, DFO, CCG duties, construction of the wharf, restrictions, terminal clause, environmental, amendments, communications, and appendices. There are still some minor changes to the LUA to be finalized, but staff would recommend proceeding with the agreement. So the motion is this: that the council of the town of St. Andrews approve the land use arrangement for the Viola Davidson with the Department of Fisheries and Oceans, Government of Canada, and I so move, your worship.
Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor. Seconder for that one, we've got Councillor, we'll go, that was a close one. You want to give it to him? Councillor Heenan, okay. Oh, you beat you, did he? Yeah. Councillor Heenan seconded. We'll open that one up for discussion. Any, I'll ask us, just Mr. Spear, is there any concern about staff obviously bringing it forward? You support, is there anything in particular around the construction, potential construction around the wharf that you're concerned
It's
about?
actually written in the agreement.
I see.
Your worship, that if basically the agreement's null and void if we tear apart the middle of the wharf. So they understand the restrictions. It was just for the sake, because of the long-term arrangement that is required, that the minister, federal minister, or the department felt necessary to get into this type of arrangement. We've been just on a month by month rent lease basis for the last year and a half or so, but they felt because it could be for going off for a few more years, they prefer to have this type of document in place.
Perfect. So staff supports the agreement?
Yeah.
Perfect. Thanks. Councillor Ware.
I guess I just went through one of these a couple of years ago with them for the same purpose. And the only comment I would make is to be cognizant of them following through on what they say they will do. That was the biggest problem I incurred.
Thank you. I appreciate the foresight.
Thank you very much, Mr. Spear. Any other questions? Okay, all in favor of approving this agreement, please signify by saying aye. So everybody, that has been carried. We'll give a few minutes for Councillor Blanchard and Councillor Neal to reappear. Thank you for. You had a few light weeks, you had a few, right? We couldn't begin without you. The next portfolio is yours for public safety. Over to Councillor Neal. Welcome back.
Your worship, you give me 1 minute just to come on up. All right, this is reference number PS 230405, and the subject is bylaw number 23-02, a bylaw of the town of St. Andrews respecting dangerous or unsightly premises, first reading. The background reads, with the recent changes from local governance reform, the town of St. Andrews must review each bylaw and make revisions based on the new entity. Provided for the council's consideration is bylaw number 23-02, a bylaw of the town of St. Andrews respecting dangerous or unsightly premises. The bylaw process, again, first reading, public hearing of objections and comments, second reading, followed by third and final reading. The motion reads that the council of the town of St. Andrews grants leave for first reading to the bylaw number 23-02, a bylaw respecting dangerous or unsightly premises in the town of St. Andrews, and I so move.
Thank you, Councillor Neal. Could I have a seconder for that one? I've got Councillor Ware and discussion on this one. We did discuss it kind of last week before we brought it forward. Okay, seeing none, I will call the question. Oh, sorry. Did I miss someone?
Councillor Neal.
Councillor Neal, sorry, I missed your hand.
Is that right? Yeah, I just had one comment, and I think it's just a wording issue. When I was kind of doing a little bit of research with regards to the provinces part 13, I had noticed that they have changed some of the wording. With regards mainly to the authorization of bylaw enforcement officers when they're conducting inspections. There's a new revision here basically stating that they can only be allowed to enter a dwelling or dwelling unit upon obtaining consent from the occupant or obtaining an entry warrant under the Entry Warrants Act. And I was just wondering if that's something that might require a little bit of rewording before we move forward.
Yes, thank you for picking that up. I would have had legal review after this reading, but
Yeah.
thank you for picking that up.
I will say I'm thoroughly impressed that you went in and read both of them. I don't think there's any reason why not to proceed, because that's something that we can just add after. But it is good to note for the future revisions. Thank you very much, Council Neal. Just making sure I didn't miss any other hands. All good. Okay, all in favor of going to first reading, please signify by saying aye. That's everybody. So we are set for first reading. I will read it by title. This is bylaw number 23-02, a bylaw respecting dangerous or unsightly premises in the town of St. Andrews. Number 1 is definitions. Number 2 is title. Number 3 is reference to act. Number 4 is inspection. Number 5 is offenses and penalties relating to dangerous or unsightly premises. 6 is notice to owner and occupier. 7 is evidence. 8 is appeal. 9 is registering a notice. 10 is offense and penalty for failure to comply with a notice. 11 is power to clean, repair, or demolish. Number 12 is report required before demolition. Number 13 is emergency. Number 14 is offense and penalty for obstruction. Number 15 is recovery of the town's cost, filing of certificate. Number 16 is lien. Number 17 is debts paid by the Minister of Finance. And number 8 is severability. There we go. 19 is repeal of previous bylaw, and this was read the first time the 17th day of April 2023, unless someone would like me to read the entire thing in full length. No? Okay. It will be available on the town's website for anyone that is wondering, but this is pretty much word for word from the province of New Brunswick. All right. The next one, Councillor Neal.
The second motion is that council of the town of St. Andrews sets the date of Monday, May 15th, 2023 at 6:30 PM through a public hearing of objections on bylaw number 23-02, a bylaw respecting dangerous or unsightly premises in the town of St. Andrews, and I so move.
Thank you very much. A seconder for that motion. Counselor Harland, I think, beat you on that one again. She's quicker than you. Okay, any discussion on that date for the hearing of objections? Okay, all in favor of approving the date of Monday, May 15th at 6:30 PM for the hearing objections, please signify by saying aye. That's everybody. So that date has been set. And Councillor Neal, you have another one.
Thank you, Worship. The second one is reference number PS 230406. And the subject is the RCMP Community Policing Priorities for 2023. The background reads, each year, the Royal Canadian Mounted Police ask council to provide their top community policing priorities. Community policing, as defined under the Department of Public Safety of the Government of Canada, states it is a philosophy that promotes organizational strategies that support the systematic use of partnerships and problem-solving techniques to proactively address the immediate conditions that give rise to public safety issues such as crime, social disorder, and fear of crime. Once approved, priorities will be provided to the RCMP. Council would like to continue ongoing communications with the RCMP to ensure that community priorities are addressed in 2023. And the motion reads that the Council of the Town of St. Andrews approves the following 2023 Royal Canadian Mounted Police Community Priorities for the Town of St. Andrews. 1, drug enforcement, education, and reduction of substance abuse. 2, increased police presence, including traffic enforcement regarding speeding. And 3, theft reduction and enforcement. And I so move, your worship.
Thank you, Councillor Neal. Seconder for that one. I've got Councillor Heenan and discussion. I will say that Councillor Bennett and myself went to the Regional Service Commission priority setting, so for the region. And although they weren't put in writing before us, their 3 priorities would be drug enforcement. They're looking at repeat offenders, and the third one would be visibility as well. The RCMP uses the word engagement on visibility, but I think most members there were using the word visibility. So they do line pretty closely to what we are. The only difference being, of course, theft reduction, and one could probably argue that a lot of that is repeat offenders as well. So I don't think we're out of sync from the region. I think that's very important. I will say, and in comments on this, I think it's important that we have a follow-up meeting. Mayor Morris of Graham and Ann really hit it home to say that there should be metrics. I know that's part of their police reporting, but we really should have almost targets to see. It's one thing writing these down, but if you don't have any meat behind it, it's just feel good statements is kind of what we talked about. So I think we need to come up with an action plan around these other than just have 3 generic statements of what the priorities are. So you can look at the Regional Service Commission to lead that since they're consistent, but we should, since we have a unique contract for the old St. Andrews, we do have the benefit of sitting down with them for that extra face-to-face time we should completely take advantage of. Any other comments? Councillor Harland.
It's number 2 in terms of the way it's worded. So I really like the fact that it's increased police presence, but not so the focus then becomes traffic enforcement, where I would like to see increased police presence in the community, at the school, beyond just traffic enforcement. So because it provides a different tone in terms of what we're really looking for.
I would concur with that statement. I think it could really separate those a little more, because when it says including traffic enforcement, it seems like even though it says police presence, it does put a little bit more emphasis on traffic enforcement. I'm not sure that's council's intent, but maybe it was. Any other member of council want to weigh in on that? Councillor Heenan.
Your worship, I would concur with Councillor Harland. I think we need a period after increased police presence, period. And it could be like i.e., like an example, traffic enforcement regarding speeding, like that kind of separates to me.
Okay. Maybe we put i.e. Engage with community youth, comma, traffic enforcement, et cetera. So it just opens it up. Counselor Hurdle.
Thank you, Your Worship. Wouldn't by default increase police presence accomplish those things?
It would, but we just signaled only one out. You know what I mean? It
Right.
kind of take, not to say it isn't, but it kind of almost makes that the priority of the statement. Again, it doesn't limit your point, but it really, that's what draws your eye to it, right? So should we rephrase that motion or should we just call that a friendly amendment? Because we know that
Better,
was the
Your
spirit.
worship, I think we're just talking quickly, probably better to ask for an amendment on paragraph or on statement 2.
So you want me to actually ask for amendment? So how about increase police presence, i.e. traffic enforcement, engaging with youth, et cetera? Like that just makes it not just all about traffic. Does that make sense to everybody? So did someone catch that? It's recorded, so you got it.
Mover for that.
So could I have a mover for that? I've got Counselor Hurl and seconded by Counselor Heenan. Any discussions on that amendment? Okay, all in favor of approving the amendment, please signify by saying aye. That has been amended. So we're back to the original. Any more discussion? Okay, all in favor of approving these 3 priorities, please signify by saying aye. That's everybody. Those have been set. Thank you very much, Counselor, for working through that. We are now into business, tourism, heritage, and culture, and Counselor Hurdle's portfolio, which she has a conflict with. So we'll give you a minute to recuse yourself. Counselor Harlan, are you comfortable reading that one? Okay, Counselor Harlan, it's yours.
Do I have to start over?
Maybe you should.
Okay. Reference number BTHC 230205, and the subject is bylaw number 23-01, a bylaw relating to a tourism accommodation levy in the town of St. Andrews, third and final reading. And the background is with the recent changes from local governance reform, the town of St. Andrews must review each bylaw and make revisions based on the new entity. Provided for the council's consideration is bylaw number 23-01, a bylaw relating to a tourism accommodation levy in the town of St. Andrews. The bylaw process was as follows: first reading February 6, 2023, public hearing of objections and comments March 6, 2023, second reading April 3rd, 2023, third and final reading. And the motion reads that the Council of the Town of St. Andrews grants leave for third and final reading to bylaw number 23-01, a bylaw relating to a tourism accommodation levy in the town of St. Andrews. And I so move.
Thank you very much, Counselor Harlan. Could I have a seconder for that? We got Counselor Heenan. It's on the table. I do know that some counselors have some comments, I believe, on this one. Maybe Counselor Ware, since you called me today, we had a good conversation. You want to kick it off? I assume you'd like to.
Well, I did send an email out to everyone last night. And I don't have a problem with the bylaw. You know, these are common throughout any place I go to stay, it seems. And but I think we had a good communication plan in place at the start of it, but it didn't work out as well as it could have. And as a result, a lot of the non-resident Airbnbs in particular don't seem to be aware of it. And I've talked to a few or shared emails with a few of them, and they're upset about it, and perhaps rightly so. Perhaps they should be watching closer. I'm not going to form an opinion on that. But I think we should attempt to delay enacting it for the 2 wards for maybe until July 1st to give us an opportunity to meet with these people or correspond with them and explain all the benefits of the levy and just get a better feeling for it at the end of the day. This is the first time we've taken a bylaw out into the wards, and I'd hate to see a lack of communication make it turn out less successful than it should be. So that's my thoughts on it.
Perfect, Councilor. So just would it be safe to assume that you would be looking to amend it to implement on or after July 1st, 2023? That would appease kind of your, okay. So Councilor, there is an amendment. If you look under, I believe it might be in multiple places, but it's definitely Schedule A, Tourism Accommodation Levy, Schedule A. It's under 1.1. The last one, it says April 30th. That would be an amendment to state that as of July 1st, 2023. Keeping in mind that that would be for all, not just Shamcook Bayside wards, because the municipality of St. Andrews, the people that are currently participating, some 50 plus, it is a change from 3 to 3.5%, because they would have had the exact same communication strategy as Shamcook Bayside. And just to add on to your points, you know, this was something that's been talked about since January by council. It's obviously been on CHGO. It's been advertised. It's been on the town website, social media, in front of the board, in front of the arena, or in front of the town hall. We also did a mail out, but the concern is some members from the wards are new to the community and they didn't realize that if you filter out basically your spam mail, this is a mail out, it doesn't go through. And also if you are out of your residence, it also doesn't get forwarded on because it's part of a mail out. So did that summarize kind of the hiccup in your mind? Because I do have people that are out in the wards that actually showed me the paper as well. So, but I think it's a learning opportunity in a community that's expanded would be your kind of where you're going with from that, right?
Yeah.
So council, we do have
the bylaw fully, just communication.
Yeah. I've got a mover to amend it. Do you have any concerns on that? So I need a seconder if anyone else feels that it should be the implementation for everything should be July 1st. Keep in mind, the old accommodation levy of 3% still applies to the existing participants that are paying that within the traditional St. Andrews, the old St. Andrews. We really need to come up with a name. I don't like urban for it, but like we've got to find a name for it than old St. Andrews. So council, do I have a seconder for that one or no?
Before we go there, could we just talk about a little more here?
We can, but first I'll see if I have a seconder on that and then we can, because we're going to go back to debate on that as well. So do we have a seconder for that delay? I'm not seeing one right now. Okay, Councillor Neal, a second that maybe to get it on the table. So this is for the amendment. Is there any concerns over the amendment to July 1st, 2023 on that? Okay.
Your worship, just to be clear, it is on paragraph 4.1.
Okay.
As well as schedule.
Thank you for that. For the
And we
second
just
listing.
want to, because it's a legal document, we want to make sure the amendment reflects that.
So again, to be consistent, it's 4.1 and under Schedule A 1.1. Perfect. Thank you for that. Any more discussion on that amendment? Otherwise, I'll call a question. Then we have to go back to the original bylaw, Councillor Bennett. Okay, all in favor of approving that amendment, please signify by saying aye. Keep your hands up there so I can see them. I'm seeing 1, 2, Deputy Mayor, your hands up. Yes, 3, and all opposed, just at 1, 2, 3, 4. And Councillor Blanchard, I don't know if I saw your hand either way.
He voted.
I was in favor of the amendment.
4-4. So I guess this means that I actually get to split a tie. Myself in a new community, the bylaws implemented. I myself will respect the July 1st. It's important to note that so I'll be voting in favor of the amendment. It's important to note that majority of the funds collected for this will be July 1st. And it's important to note that all bookings that are made prior to July 1st actually are not subject to this bylaw as well. But in the essence of having everybody in our community is well informed, we're not going to be able to postpone everything when someone hasn't heard, because we're not going to be able to have 3,000 conversations every time. But I do want to make sure that we're all on the same foot as a community and making sure that if a ward councillor has concerns about the implementation, that I do respect it. So I will go with that. So the amendment has been carried. Now we're back to the original motion with the amendment again being of July 1st included in it, and that is open for discussion. Councilor Bennett.
going back 2 weeks ago, I questioned the mail out process and the fact that I believe that I asked about the remote people and if they would get the information provided so that they would be able to contact us with any concerns. And some of our council members here even brought up the fact that mail would be forwarded even to people if they're in the States. However, from my understanding, this wasn't a mail out, that this was sent out as a flyer to go in our weekly flyers to be delivered the same way. Well, I don't know why, but I don't get flyers at my home. And if something goes out as a flyer, it certainly wouldn't be forwarded by the Canadian Post Office anywhere. It's just simply junk, unless it's an addressed envelope. It would have, that's the only way that Canada Post is going to forward something, if you have your mail indeed forwarded. Therefore, and I do believe that there's a large percentage of the Airbnbs and citizens in our region that live remotely, not even in the province. So, and I do believe it's our responsibility to make sure that we contact the people. And sending out a flyer that can end up in junk mail, not even delivered to a residence, would mean that we didn't do a good job in notifying the public. People in town may have got their flyers put in their mailboxes downtown in the post office, but when you live in the outlying areas, I have a community mailbox. I don't get flyers in it. If anybody else in my community that gets their mail in the community mailbox that don't get flyers put in it, wouldn't have received this notification and would not possibly have known. I contacted 2 Airbnbs on my road that are off the glebe, one in Sudbury, Ontario, and one that's in St. George, and both people had no idea what this was about. They didn't know that there was any kind of taxation that was headed their way or any responsibilities. And I get it that the town has talked about this since January and that you guys have done a lot, but we didn't send mail outs to an address. And when mail outs or when flyers get thrown in the garbage, it's not communication.
So if I may, Councilor Bennett, so you think that the town should individually label every single mail out to individual address and pay for postage? Just to be clear, because that would be a significant.
Are we responsible to communicate with the community, with the residents? And the business owners are the ones that I'm most worried about. If someone doesn't have an Airbnb, I'm not really, I don't have a real big concern for their welfare, but there's not a huge number of registered like Airbnbs and hotels and motels in Shamcook and Bayside. There's not a huge number of them. And for the ones that live remotely that couldn't possibly know about this unless they're watching CHCO internationally or whatever, how could they ever possibly know about a big change like this? And this is a major change to someone's operation.
I don't take it lightly as when it was originally implemented, businesses didn't take it lightly either, but I will say that the communication, I don't know what else the municipality could actually, is there a suggestion you'd have? Are you saying that we individually pay for stamps on all mailouts going?
For the business owners that this affects, absolutely.
But how would you know who the business owners are? You could assume that on Airbnb, but you don't know for a fact that they're all on Airbnb. They could be operating it through a website, and you have to assume that you have to communicate to all, not just the ones that are on one website, right? So everybody's aware, or someone who's potentially investing in an Airbnb, they need to have the opportunity to know as well.
Fair enough, and I get that, and I'm happy to have a discussion about this, right? But it's very clear that residents in Shamcook and Bayside had no knowledge about what was happening here and have not been part of any of this process. They weren't afforded any time to challenge it, to discuss it. Their voices were not heard. And here we are now at the end of this process where we're approving this to come into effect now, July 1st. And these people, and I'm worried that there's still people out there that still don't know about this today.
It's about this bylaw, but it also isn't about this bylaw. It's about communication. And I still go back to fundamentally what else for a bylaw that the town could do to notify the public, right? Like I get what you're saying, individually go up and look on Airbnb, but somebody right now could be potentially looking to buy a place to turn into a, we have to assume that they got to be, and as far as the mail outs, they've always been used. You go to a post office And you have options to pick what, if you want it just for the traditional St. Andrews or the entire peninsula, and you pay a fee and it goes into every mailbox. And if you opt out of that, I actually don't think that's on the town of St. Andrews, because we can't individually reach out to every single person and write their address down. If there's a new place that opens, we won't even have their address, right? Like it's just, you're going to miss places by doing it that way versus a blanket mail out. So I see where you're going.
I don't know why I don't get the flyers in the mail. I have no idea. But since I've lived here, I don't receive flyers in the mail. So that's not my choice. I just don't get them. There used to be a box besides my community mailbox where you could reach down and they put the flyers in there, and you could choose to pick those up if you wanted to, if you were looking for the flyers, but the flyers don't end up in my mailbox. So if we're paying Canada Post to deliver that communication to our mailboxes and are going somewhere else, but not in our mailboxes, that's not on the residents for not knowing about. The system is flawed if we're not delivering that communication to an address.
Okay, I think we'll have a follow-up with Canada Post and just say why they wouldn't get it, and if they're opting out of getting communication, mass communication. I think we need to do education to the public of why you should not opt out of that, so you receive the mail, because that's the best path forward here. I don't see any other way we can get it to people's homes without doing a mass mail out. Like, it's like water bills are to individual address, but they have accounts associated with it, and it's a tough one. And then when you go to the wards, they don't have water bills, so we don't even have that, right? They have wells. So we'll thank you for your comments, Councillor Bennett. I saw Councillor Heenan, then I'll go to Councillor Harlan. Councillor Heenan.
Thank you, Your Worship, and thank you, Councillor Bennett. I do feel, however, that anybody that is running a business, it's their responsibility, solely their responsibility, to find out what the new bylaws will have effect on them. Whether it flyer, whatever. Their flyers go out, people throw them. You can go down in the post office and look. People throw them in the garbage can. Well, that's not our fault. And I feel, and you have admitted it, that we've talked about this. It's been on CHCO since January. This is now April. I feel that the people who have an Airbnb in the outlying areas, it is their responsibility, not ours. It's their responsibility to find out the differences and what affects them to do business in the town of St. Andrews.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Harlan.
I think this does raise the larger question of communication, and I think it's really important and timely for us to have a conversation about that, and to remind everybody that we have an excellent website. The town of St. Andrews has an excellent website. You can sign up and get notifications of everything, I think, that goes up on the website, which is wonderful. I think it's really important that every resident in St. Andrews, which includes the wards at Bayside and Shamcook, that they sign up and that they get the communication of what's happening in St. Andrews. I think it is important for us to talk about it because we've just started on this road of integration, and we've got a long road ahead of us, and people need to keep themselves informed. And while I think it is important that we do mailouts, there's a glitch with Canada Post, but I think the town does the best that they can in terms of getting information out. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Harlan. Any other member of council?
Can I
Just one sec. We'll go a second round after. We just want to make sure everyone has an opportunity. Any other member of council? Councillor Neil.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yeah, I was just wondering if, again, to the point about not knowing whether, an Airbnb is operating or not, I really don't understand how town staff would know that. But I'm wondering, is there an opportunity here to sort of to work with TALB, Explore MB? Like, would they be more knowledgeable on who is operating in the area, or is there a partnership that can be formed there to try and get this notification out?
Potentially, but they're more for the administer of the funds, not the collection of the bylaw. The bylaw funds are collected by the town of St. Andrews, and we are the enforceable party when it comes to bylaws. They could provide insight, but I'll say that town staff when it was implemented last time, it isn't a hard transition. It's been a soft transition of education. And, we did reserve funds for for potential legal proceedings, and the funds have been maxed out because they've never been required because the operators have worked with town staff to do it again. If it's July 1st, any booking before July 1st is not subject, even if it's August, November, if it's next year, it's not subject to the 3.5%. Any other questions? Okay, go a second round because I know Councillor Bennett had another comment.
Sure.
Worship, sorry, your worship, I've had my hand up there a little while there. Just maybe a reminder to check the screen every once in a while.
So, sorry, there's two of you too. I should.
And Councillor Harlan actually touched on what I was going to comment on. I just a reminder to check the screen. But again, I would be a little more open. I mean, I'm certainly sympathetic to the to Councillor Bennett and the comments, but I'd be more sympathetic if the mail out was our only method of communication, as Councillor Harlan had mentioned. We do have the website, and I do think it's there's a certain amount of responsibility on, especially business owners, to check the town website. Even if you're out of province, out of country, you may not have access to CHCO perhaps, but you certainly have access to the town website. It's a great resource. All this information has been posted there, and I think there's some responsibility on individual business owners, especially, and homeowners, to find out what's going on in the town, and I think that's one way to do it. So again, we have multiple ways of communicating, and I think, like I said, the mailouts are just one, so I just wanted to mention that. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Blanchard. Since we said CHO, we should also recognize the St. Croix Courier. It was in it this week, and they're in the room as well. Councillor Bennett, back to you.
Not to beat a dead horse, but for the people, there's a lot of citizens in New Brunswick that don't understand government reform and what it's meant. There's a lot of people in this community that still don't understand that that they belong to St. Andrews now. So someone who lives in Sudbury, Ontario, like Mr. Nee, who forwarded his comments to me that I forward everybody on council, he didn't know that we're now part of St. Andrews. He wouldn't know to look on St. Andrews website. And I do appreciate your comments. Thank you. And it's great that you pointed that out. And I hope that everybody going forward that knows and understands will communicate it to their neighbors and friends and the businesses and whatnot. But for people out of province and people out of country, how could they possibly know what's going on with government reform unless they visited the province and happen to have dealt with this? Now, part of the whole reform process and the education that we received, the province said that there's funding for different activities and if we have any unexpected expenses and stuff. So maybe it's time that we go to the province and ask for some funding and try to build a new web awareness and maybe a mail out to addresses, an actual mail out stamped addressed mail out to all our residents, explaining that we're now all part of St. Andrews and where they can find a copy of the bylaws. At least that way, anybody who is remote, some people might not even come back for years at a time that don't have land or have residence here. So they would never know that there's been a major change to their property or to their residence. So this is a great opportunity that we can look for some provincial money and find a way that we can communicate with everybody, try to make a compromise list.
Thank you, Councillor Bennett. I will say that as we get to strategic priorities, I think reform will have to probably be one of them. So I think that's something that we can dive into further about potential educational elements, because your point is taken. I think most people are well aware that reform has happened, but to think that everyone has, I don't want to assume that either. So, and even the people that do know is they don't 100% know what it exactly means. So yeah, any other counselor, since I did a round two for Councillor Bennett, this will be the last time around, just to be clear. Okay, I'll call the question. All in favor of approving this motion, please signify by saying aye. Okay, and opposed? Seeing none. Okay, motion carried. We are now into the next motion.
Nope. Your worship, you are not into the next motion.
Councillor Hurdle, sorry, yes. He can't read it if he's not in the room, can he?
That's right.
Who are you?
Thank you, everyone. I'm guessing we are on to BTHC 230405.
Correct.
And this is the subject is the Ocean View Campground lease payments for 2023 to 2027. The background is that Section 12A of Schedule C of the Ocean View Campground lease between the Town of St. Andrews and the Kiwanis Club of St. Andrews states that the lease payments will be reviewed and renewed every 5 years. Staff has been working with representatives of the Kiwanis Club to establish a new lease payment for 2023 to 2027. Please see the attached email correspondence for more details. Staff recommends a lease payment of $23,000 plus HST. And the motion before us is that the Council of the Town of St. Andrews approves the yearly lease payments of $23,000 plus HST for the years 2023 to 2027 for the Ocean View Campground leased by the Kiwanis Club of St. Andrews, and I so move.
Thank you. Could I have a seconder for that one? I've got Deputy Mayor Akaji. Discussion. Again, it isn't a lease approval. It is the payment terms of the lease. Councilor Hurdle.
Just wonder if there should be an amendment that's per year in the motion.
It says approves the yearly lease payments. Yeah, no, that's okay. It's sometimes it's after, sometimes it's before. Any other member of council? Okay, I'll call the question. All in favor of approving this, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
I'm looking at the screen, see it. That has been carried. Just give me one quick moment here. All right, council, I do during this meeting have to read the tourism accommodation levy in full. So give me one quick moment here. Go on to page 147. All right, bear with me. This is bylaw number 23-01, a bylaw relating to a tourism accommodation levy in the town of St. Andrews, being enacted by the council of the town of St. Andrews under the authority vested in it by Local Governance Act, CH 2017 C18, sections 19.1 and 101.1 to 101.3, and amendments here too, hereby makes and enacts this bylaw as follows. Number one is title. 1.1, this bylaw may be cited as the tourism accommodation levy bylaw of the town of St. Andrews. 2 is definitions. 2.1, and this bylaw, unless the context otherwise requires 2.11, council means, do I have to read all the definitions as well? All. Bear with me, everybody. 2.1.1, council means the council for the town of St. Andrews. 2.1.2, guest means an individual or group that acquires accommodation under this bylaw. 2.13, levy means the tourism accommodation levy. 2.14, mutual shared service means that projects can be combined between tourism development and tourism promotion that jointly benefit tourism initiatives in the community. For example, staffing, transit, etc. 2.1.5, operator means any person who sells, offers to sell, provides, and offers to provide tourism accommodations within the municipal boundaries of the town of St. Andrews. Operators outside of this area are welcome to participate on a voluntary basis and follow the bylaws presented. 2.16, service provider means the organization selected by the town of St. Andrews Council to conduct tourism initiatives on behalf of the town. 2.17, tourism accommodation means the provision of lodging in any premises operated to provide for remuneration, temporary sleeping accommodation for the traveling public or for the use of the public engaging in recreation activities, including campgrounds, glamping, and trailer parks for a continuous period not exceeding 31 days. 2.1.8, tourism development means planning and implementation of strategies, infrastructure, or other projects deemed appropriate by the council to support tourism with the objective of developing the tourism sector to increase the attractiveness of a destination and thereby attract more tourists. 2.1.9, tourism promotion means activities, operations, and expenditures designed to increase the number of visitors at a destination and maximize the utilized capacity of a tourist business, including but not limited to advertising, publicizing, or otherwise distributing information for the purposes of attracting and welcoming tourists, developing strategies to expand tourism, operating tourism promotion agencies, and funding the marketing of the operation of specific events and festivals designed to attract tourists. 2.110, town means the town of St. Andrews as amalgamated on January 1st, 2023. 3 is scheduled amendments. The council may be, 3.1 is the council may from time to time amend by resolution schedules A and B inclusive of this bylaw. 4, schedule amendments 4.1, a guest shall pay a levy on the purchase price of the tourism accommodation in the amount specified in Schedule A on all accommodation bookings finalized on or after April 30th, 2023. 4.2, an operator shall include on every invoice or receipt for the purchase of such accommodation a separate item for the amount of the levy imposed on the purchase. Then the item shall be identified as tourism accommodation levy. 5 is exemptions. 5.1, the levy imposed under Section 4 shall not apply to 5.11, a student who is accommodated in a building owned or operated by a post-secondary education institution while the student is registered at or attending a post-secondary education institution. 5.12, a student who is accompanied in a building owned and operated by a science-based institution while the student is registered to attend a continuing education program. 5.13, a person who is accommodated in a room for more than 31 consecutive days. 5.14, hotel or motel rooms provided by the town and the town, the province, or their agents for emergency shelter accommodation purposes. 6 is registration of operators. 6.1, every operator of a facility providing tourism accommodation shall apply annually by March 31st of each year for a registration certificate from the town. 6.2, if an operator owns more than one establishment in the town of St. Andrews, they are required to obtain a registration for each individual property. 6.3, the registration certificate shall be displayed prominently on the premise. 6.4, any changes in the business, including ownership, change of address, operating structure, or cessation of business, the operator shall notify the town. 6.5, when an operator changes the nature of the business, they shall immediately return to the current registration certificate and be issued a new one. 6.6, in the event an operator ceases business, the certificate becomes void and it shall be returned to the town. 6.7, all registered operators must ensure they comply with the bylaws of the town of St. Andrews, all applicable laws and the regulations of the province of New Brunswick. Registration and payment under this bylaw do not confirm your compliance with other bylaws. 6.A, the annual fee for registration shall be in accordance with Schedule A of this bylaw. 7 is the collection by operators. 7.1, operators shall collect the levy from the guest at the time of the tourism accommodation is paid for and shall remit the levy to the town of in the prescribed times and in the prescribed manner as set forth in this bylaw. And did I read the January 1st? I should have said. Yeah. So that'd be July 1st in this version, eh? It should be updated. Okay. Report and remittance of levy. 8.1, subject to the provisions of subsection 8.2, unless otherwise provided, all operators shall make separate quarterly reports to the town on the prescribed report form of a tourism accommodation sales and levies collected. 8.2, a separate report shall be made for each place of business unless a consolidated report has been provided by the town. 8.3, the operators shall submit reports and remit the levy to the town of St. Andrews on a quarterly basis. Such reports and remittances shall be made by the 30th day of the month following the end of the quarter. How's everyone doing?
How are you?
Good. I should have rationed my water better. 8.4, if an operator during the preceding period has collected no levy, they shall nevertheless make a report to the effect NIL on the prescribed report form. 8.5, where an operator ceases to carry, thank you very much, ceases to carry on or disposes their business, they shall make the report and remit the levy collected within 20 days of the date discontinuance of disposal. 9 is records. 9.1, every operator shall keep books of accounts, records, and documents with the necessary particulars of. 9.11, sale of tourism accommodation. 9.12, amount of levy collected. 9.13, remittance levy. 9.2, all entries concerning the levy in such books of accounts, records, and documents shall be separate and distinguishable from other entries made therein. 9.3, every operator shall retain any books of accounts, records, or other documents referred to in this section for a minimum period of the current year plus 6 years. 9.4, council may appoint an independent auditor to inspect and audit all books, documents, transactions, and accounts of operators and require operators to produce copies of any documents or records required for the purposes of administrating and enforcing this bylaw. 10 is administration. 10.1, tourism accommodation levy funds will be allocated as set out in section A. 10.2, all collections of the levy and related disbursements shall be held and accounted for in separate bank account. 10.3, the town may charge an administrative fee to cover expenses related to the administration and enforcement of this bylaw. 10.4, a cap of 20,000 has been established for the administration fee. Once collected, the cap, any funds collected through the administration fee will be split 1/3 and 2/3 between the town and the service provider. If administrative fee funds fall below the established cap, Funds will be recouped from the tourism accommodation levy to meet the cap. 10.5, council will appoint a service provider to administer and manage a portion of the tourism accommodation levy in accordance with the terms and references as per Schedule B of the bylaw. 10.6, the town of St. Andrews will administer and manage the portion of the tourism accommodation levy in accordance with the terms and reference as per Schedule B of this bylaw. 10.7, the Regional Service Commission of the province of New Brunswick has a mandate for developing and supporting tourism at a regional level. The Regional Service Commission on a yearly basis will tax the town of St. Andrews to support initiatives at the regional level. Tourism fees charged to the town by the Regional Service Commission will come from the tourism accommodation levy before funds are provided to the town and service provider as outlined in Schedule A. 11 is interest. 11.1, interest payable under the bylaw shall be payable at a rate of 1.5% compounded monthly. Enforcement. 12.1, any bylaw enforcement officer is hereby authorized to make such actions, exercise such powers, and perform such duties as may be set out in this bylaw or in the Local Governance Act, and as they may deem necessary to enforce the provision of this bylaw. 13 is action on arrears. 13.1, where levy imposed by this bylaw is in arrears in addition to other remedies, including interest as per section 11, that the town must enforce payment. The town may commence legal proceedings to collect arrears, register liens against the subject property, or disconnect the service of a water line to sewer system and water and sewage system provided to the person who owes the levy to the town. 14, offenses. 14.1, enforcement of this bylaw shall be subject to the provision of Part 14 of the Local Governance Act. 14.2, any operator violates any provision of this bylaw is guilty of an offense and is liable on a conviction to a fine. 14.3, any operator who does not register or circumvent registration with the town of St. Andrews in accordance with this bylaw is guilty of an offense and is liable on conviction of fine. 14.4, all contraventions of this bylaw, designated bylaw contraventions that may be dealt with by a notice of penalty pursuant to the provisions of the Local Community Act. I got one more full page here, but do I have to read the appendixes too? No, good. 14.5, the administrative penalty for each applicable contravention of this bylaw shall be in accordance with Schedule A. 14.6, a person to whom a penalty notice is delivered may pay the administration penalty on or before or a charge pertaining to the offenses has been laid. Provincial court has followed. 14.61, in person at the town of St. Andrews office, 212 Water Street, St. Andrews, New Brunswick, by cash, debit, credit card, money order, or bank draft payable to the town of St. Andrews. Or 14.62, by mail to town of St. Andrews, 212 Water Street, St. Andrews, New Brunswick, E5B 1B4, by money order or bank draft payable to the town of St. Andrews. Or 14.63, electronically by credit card on the town of St. Andrews website, which is www.townofstandrews.ca. Or 14.64, over the phone with a credit card to the town of St. Andrews office at, I think you have to put the one in officially, don't you? 1-506-529-5120. Or 14.65, electronically by e-transfer to the town of St. Andrews at payments@townofstandrews.ca. 14.7, a person who pays the administrative penalty shall be deemed to have contravened the provision of the bylaw in respect of which the payment has been made and shall not be charged with the offense in respect to the same incident that gave rise to the administration penalty. 14.8, if the administration penalty is not paid in accordance with section 14.6, the person charged with the offense under the Provincial Offences and Procedures Act, section 56.4, category D offense in the Court of King's Bench is liable on summary conviction to a minimum fine of $140 to a maximum fine of $2,100. All penalties issued as per Schedule A are still in effect if the penalties are charged in the Court of King's Bench. 14.9, conviction of a person for an offense under this bylaw or the payment of administration penalty does not relieve the person from compliance with this bylaw, and the town may take further actions as set out as section 13, which may be necessary to collect the outstanding levy. 15 is the bylaw repealed. 15.1, the town of St. Andrews bylaw number 19-06, a bylaw relating to a tourism accommodation levy in the town of St. Andrews is hereby repealed on the same day coming into force of this bylaw. 16.2, the repeal of said bylaw number 19-06 shall not affect any penalty for forfeiture or liability, including before such appeal or any proceeding on enforcement, the same completed or pending at the time of the repeal, nor shall it be repeal or disturb, invalidate, or judicially affect any matter or thing whatsoever completed, existing, or pending at the time of the repeal. The effective date read the first time, the 6th day of February 2023. The public hearing of objections was the 6th day of March 2023. So read the second time, the 3rd day of April 2023, and read in full for the 3rd and final time, April 17th, 2023. Anyone want me to read that again? How many, did you see the viewers drop off CHGO, Vicky? Yes, thank you. Couple tongue ties there. All right, council, where were we? We
Page
were,
162, your worship.
pardon?
Page 162, Councillor Gumichel.
Perfect. Thank you. Just give me a moment there, Councillor Gumichel. Over to you.
Thank you very much, your worship. Reference number, excuse me, RCS 230412 dated April 11th and submitted by myself. And the subject is resignation of age-friendly advisory committee members. And the background reads, the town of St. Andrews has been notified that 2 members of the age-friendly advisory committee will be stepping down from the committee. Please see the attached letters for the resignations of Leslie Blanc and Sue Corbin. Leslie and Sue have been instrumental in the initiation, development, implementation, and ongoing practices of the Age-Friendly Advisory Committee. Their contributions can be felt throughout the community through the actions and goals that have been achieved to date. We thank Leslie and Sue for their volunteering efforts and wish them all the best in the future. And the motion reads that the council of the town of St. Andrews accepts the resignations of Leslie LeBlanc and Sue Corbin from the Age-Friendly Advisory Committee. I make that motion.
Seconder for that one. Councillor Heenan, discussion? Okay, all in favor of accepting those resignations, please signify by saying aye. Thank you very much. Just wanted to personally thank both Leslie and Sue. Both of them have been Sue, as long as I remember, my first job, I actually worked for Sue at the Visitor Information Center, but they contribute a lot to the community. And I want to highlight Leslie as one of the key individuals that helped get that whole initiative with Caroline Davies off the ground. So a lot of hours spent volunteering, and it is greatly appreciated by the town. And I'll be sending them a letter of gratitude as well on behalf of the town. So thank you, everybody. And we'll go to, let's jump over here. The next one.
The next one, your worship, is RCS 230413, submitted by myself, April 13th, 2023. And the subject is Trail Advisory Committee recommendations. And the background reads, the Trail Advisory Committee, established in January of 2023, has been working on reviewing trail projects for St. Andrews. Funds for trail projects would come from grant funding already acquired, and that needs to be spent by 2025. The committee is recommending to council the following projects for consideration. Firstly, creation of a trail between Harry Mallory Sports Field, Cemetery Road to Bar Road. Dotted line on map provided indicates the approximate trail location. And secondly, creation of a raised trail along Water Street from Patrick Street to Indian Point Park on the north side. Black line highlighted in yellow, and trail on the map indicates the approximate trail location. Please see attached documentation for locations and concepts. If council approves, staff will work with the engineers on the next steps of design. Trails would be designed with accessibility standards. And the motion reads that the council of the town of St. Andrews approves the development of the following trails for the Van Horn Trail Network. Firstly, Harry Mallory Sports Field, Cemetery Road to Bar Road. Secondly, raised trail along the north side of Water Street from Patrick Street to Indian Point Park. And I would make that motion, your worship.
Thank you. A seconder for that motion. I've got Councillor Bennett. Discussion on this one. Quick question, Councillor Gumichel, is this something that the Trail Advisory Committee reviewed and supported?
Yes, so this went to the Trail Advisory Committee, and we worked with staff and came up with these recommendations to spend the funds which we acquired by the deadline.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Any other questions? Councillor Neal.
Just a quick question, which maybe Councillor Gumichel can address, but the little extension coming out to Diana Drive, is that going to come out all the way to the street, or it's not?
I'm
really
not sure
indicated
which
on the map?
page are you looking at there?
The
map?
It's the map coming around Harry Mallory Sports Field.
Right. Which side are you looking at? Sorry. Oh,
It's the little
20?
extension that comes out between the houses on Diana Drive.
Right, that is proposed. There's a natural, when the town planners back in the day put the subdivision together, they left a space there. Keith Robichaud and help me out. Keith and the the other, the town manager at the time, can't think of his name. Jacques
Yeah,
Dubé.
Dubé.
Yeah. They left a space there for a road that would connect to that that town land so that it could be developed as more subdivision. So the trail has been placed in a way that it doesn't go through the center. It stays off to the side. So that's the intent there.
But it will extend right out to the street.
I presume.
Fair enough.
Thank you. Good question. It is also quite damp in that area, so it's going to take a significant amount of work with the water flow. Anyone that's walked through there, Counselor or CAO Spear, you're looking at me like you have something to add?
I do, but I forget. No. This is still to go through the design phases, Your Worship. I should bring forward just that there's a shared member of the Trail Advisory Committees also on the board of the Passamaquoddy Lodge. And so just that actually the lodge, if that location is eventually used, could be put in there and that trail would not interfere with that land. That if you can envision as it gets closer to Bar, it's actually at the backside of the potential lodge development. But as we get closer, we'll provide some updates to council. I think back to Councillor Neal's question, probably the only connection is going to be what we used to call the old doctor's residence or the old Brad Henderson residence on the corner there. There's
No
an
longer a
old-
conflict.
Yeah. Is that there'll be a connection at that point, but that it'll go through kind of on the other side of the drainage trail that's on the back side of Diana around out to Bar Road.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay, call the question. All in favor of approving this motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
That's everybody. Okay, that wraps up Recreation and Community Services. Thank you, Councillor Gumichelle. And we're on to Councillor Heenan for Planning and Economic Development.
Thank you, Your Worship and Council. It's reference number PED 230417, Amendment MP 20-07 to the Municipal Plan MP 20-01, Henry Hansen PID 013255505, first reading. The town of St. Andrews has received a request for an amendment to the Municipal Plan MP 20-01 from Mr. Henry Hansen to allow for a one-lot subdivision on PID 01325505 Rose Lane. Next step, public presentation Monday, April the 17th. First reading, public hearing of objections, obtain views of the Planning Advisory Committee, second reading and third reading. The motion is that Council of St. Andrews grants leave for the first reading of the amendment MP 20-07 to the Town of St. Andrews Municipal Plan MP 20-01 for Mr. Henry Hansen, PID 013255505, Rose Lane, to remove the portion of residential growth area designation as shown on the generalized future land use map from PID 01325505, and I, Your Worship, so moved.
Thank you. Could I have a seconder for that motion? Councillor Blanchard, I actually caught. See, there you go. Any discussion on this going to first reading? Seeing none, call the question. All in favor of going to first reading, please signify by saying aye.
Aye, Your Worship.
It's everybody. This is bylaw number MP 20-07, a bylaw to amend bylaw number MP 20-01, being a municipal plan bylaw for the town of St. Andrews, being enacted by the council of the town of St. Andrews as follows. One, bylaw number MP 20-01, the municipal plan bylaw for the town of St. Andrews is amended by removing the portion of the residential growth area designation as shown on the generalized future land use map attached to the said bylaw scheduled A thereof for the lands shown of Schedule 1 attached here 2, read the first time the 17th day of April 2023. Next motion.
Thank you, Your Worship. Next motion, that the Council of the Town of St. Andrews sets the date of Monday, May 15th, 2023 at 6:45 PM through public hearing of objections as per section 111 of the Community Planning Act on amendment of MP 20-07 to the Town of St. Andrews Municipal Plan MP 20-01 for Mr. Henry Hansen, PID 01325505, Rose Lane, to remove the portion of residential growth area designated as shown on the generalized future land use map from PID 013255505. I so move, your worship.
Looking for a seconder again. Counselor Bennett, I'll catch on that one. Discussion on that motion. CAO Spear. All good. Okay, all in favor of approving the hearing of objections for that, please signify by saying aye.
Aye, your worship.
That's everybody that has been set in the last motion regarding this particular item.
Motion, your worship, that the council of the town of St. Andrews request the views of the Planning Advisory Committee PAC for the town of St. Andrews as per section 110 of the Community Planning Act on the amendment of MP 20-07 to the town of St. Andrews Municipal Plan, MP 20-01 for Henry Hansen, PID 0301325505 Rose Lane, to remove the portion of the residential growth area designation as shown on the generalized future land use map from PID 013255505. I so move.
Thank you, Counselor Heenan, seconder for that one. Counselor, I'm having a Harland. I almost got tongue tied there. Too much reading. Counselor Harland. Any discussion on that one? Okay, all in favor of approving the motion seconded by Counselor Harland, please signify by saying aye. That has been carried, and brings us to our next one, which is a discussion on draft bylaw number 23-01 being the building bylaw for the town of St. Andrews, PED 230418. So is this over to Xander or be over to
your worship? I can take this one.
Oh, a celebrity guest planner joining us today. Not that our own isn't, but we will pass it over to you.
Sure, thank you. Yeah, just giving Xander a little break here. I was listening in the whole meeting, but yeah, so this is a building bylaw update. This is a building bylaw update to adopt the building bylaw for the town of St. Andrews for the entire entity. Your building bylaw is one of these pretty standard bylaws that just needs to be updated from time to time to stay relevant with provincial legislation. In this case, building bylaw 2304 would adopt the accessory structure size limit that is currently in provincial regulations. This size limit is actually currently applies in the town of St. Andrews, Bayside, Shamcook, and the Old Town site inclusive currently, but your bylaw doesn't reflect that. So it's one of these kind of housekeeping updates. It's not that it actually changes anything. It's just reflecting what the provincial standard is. With the Building Code Administration Act, you can't really deviate a lot from what the province sets. And in this case, there's a couple other things which you can add. So there's some terms and conditions that you can have that are unique to your municipality. You can customize those. And for example, we have terms and conditions related to the time length which a permit is valid for. And if you have a situation where work is continuing, where there was a stop work order issued, then there can be additional penalties for obtaining your permit after the fact, after continuing with a stop work order. Just a couple other little housekeeping items here. We're recommending that you remove the reference to the 2011 National Energy Code. The province has adopted it, but what we're recommending instead is use the language as general. So you just stay current with what the province adopts. It may be going to the 2017 National Energy Code at some future date. So just it prepares the bylaw for that eventuality. Again, whatever the province puts in place, you have to adopt, and it supersedes your local bylaw if it conflicts. In addition, there is the provision related to the 2010 National Building Code if there was permits still under that, and we don't have any, so that section is no longer relevant, so we're recommending deleting it. So again, this you see the motion there, I think, in the document which was supplied to you related to repealing your current bylaw 2204 and replacing it with bylaw 2303. Or sorry, 2304. That concludes this report.
Thank you very much, Mr. Henderson. Any questions on this particular one? It is just bringing it up to regulation. It's all provincial mandated, so. Okay, seeing none, so we will proceed with that at an upcoming council meeting. Thank you very much for providing some additional insight for public information. And that concludes the introduction, consideration of passing of bylaws, but we are under new business. So you will note that there is a staff report and direction required on PID 15203359. Looks like staff is just looking for us to confirm if we'd like to bring this forward. Is that correct, Mr. Spear, Mr. Knopper, or Xander?
So yeah, it's how you want to bring it forward. So we received an application to rezone a portion of land in Bayside across the street from the industrial park. It's currently zoned industrial. And the person who owns it wants to sell it as a residential building lot. It's currently vacant. And when I was reviewing it, I noticed that there were some other properties next to it that were also zoned industrial. In fact, actually, Councilor, where your property with residential buildings on them, which are not allowed in the industrial zone. So they're right now they're legally non-conforming. So what I'm looking for direction on is, do you want a bylaw that only amends the individual property, or do you want to look at that entire area that was, I think, owned by the Port Authority and was sold off and now will not be industrial in the future, I don't believe, given especially that there are residential properties there now.
Perfect. So just a clarifying question on that. So you would reach out to interested landowners to find out if they would be interested in rezoning. Is that correct? To be?
Yeah, so it'd be an administrative amendment rather than an application for that individual property.
And if someone says no, thanks, is that just left out, or how does that?
I think it would be looked at when the whole area is dealt with, whenever those bylaws are incorporated the whole municipality. And you could wait until that time. But if we were to get applications related to the residential developments on those industrially zoned properties right now, it would create some issues.
Okay, and just a quick question. I don't want to put you, I don't know if you have it in front of you, but I was wondering if across the street, the PID ending in 596, is that industrial as well, or what's
The
that
ones,
zone?
I think the ones across the street were, I believe.
Would they be part of that process as well, or would?
No, I was leaving it just for the ones that are on the west.
In a cluster?
Yeah, in a cluster on the east side of the 127.
Okay, thank you. Council, any other questions? Councilor Ware?
I'll comment on that. I think how it got zoned industrial or commercial was when the original plan was done for Bayside. They got the wrong property. They intended to get the Bayside Community Hall, and they got the front part of my property and Mike Henderson's and Jeff Weeks. I don't think any of our buildings are located on the
I think here's a
anyway, it never did belong to the port. It Jamer bought it. They wanted to put the quarry across there that time, but I bought the property from them. So I know Jeff and I don't have any problem with it, and I assume it's Mr. Henderson that's applying to have his rezoned. So it's not an issue.
Okay, any other question from a member of council? Okay, and we'll talk about the process as it comes forward.
I just wanted to know what bylaw what map change basically I was bringing
The only
forward.
concern I see is if we do rezone it to residential, surrounding it is still. It's
On the other side of
On
the
the other
road.
side,
Yeah.
so if something happens there, you did knowingly get rezoned to residential right across the street from something that could come there, right? So it's kind of a common concern that we have that, hey, that's right beside my house.
Yeah,
And the reality is we're rezoning theirs to make it part of it. So just something to be aware of for future development, right? But I think I never saw any concern. I say we bring it forward and debate it as part of it, because does that make sense to everybody? All right, got head nods. We're good to go. Councilor Ware? Yeah.
I guess I can comment on the one across the road too. That's owned by province of New Brunswick and is part of the lands that are being sold over a period of time to the quarry. So it is under a development agreement that was signed in 1997, 1996. And they have put restrictions on it, and the intent is for the quarry to come up that far and develop that land into laydown area for the poor.
Okay, that's good to know for the process. Thank you very much. Okay, council, that wraps up that one. The next one, I have all the ones that I'm going to declare a conflict on. That's the one I'm going to declare a conflict on. I'll pass it over to Deputy Mayor Akajer. She gives me just a moment. I'll get an update on my beloved Boston Bruins as playoff hockey starts.
There's no reference number. Do you have a reference number or just leave it blank?
Just new business, Deputy.
Just new business. Okay, thank you. Councillor Blanchard, this is yours, but there is no reference number. It's just under new business.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Excuse me. So the background on this, or the subject rather, is disposal of waste receptacles. The background is prior to 2005, the town upgraded the public waste receptacles by buying larger cans and that have partial covers and a decorative decorative. I guess a decorative cover, I think, to minimize pests getting into it, reducing odors and creating a better appearance. 19 older ones were taken out of circulation and stored at Public Works since and would require some refurbishment for use. Staff had planned on disposing of them into the landfill this spring. Our partners at Kingsbury Garden are interested in acquiring the receptacles to repair, refurbish, and then use them there. Staff recommends passing them along at no charge as it reduces refuse in the landfill and reuses these other.
Should be redundant.
Yeah, exactly. No use items, I guess. Yes. So the motion before council is that council authorizes the disposal of 19 redundant waste receptacles to Kingsbury Garden, and I so move.
Thank you, Councillor Blanchard. You need a seconder, please. Councillor Harland. Any discussion on this?
So the
Oh,
question, Deputy.
sorry, Councillor Lansard.
Thanks. I'm just wondering about, do we have a policy on asset disposal? I'm just wondering what would be the normal process that we would follow? Do we have to put things like this out to the public first before we hand them off to somebody?
CAO, could you answer that question, please?
Normally, that would be the case, but they're in such bad shape. Most public people aren't going to want to use them because of the reconditioning that's going to have to take place, and they're not something that we typically use at a household. They're more for a public open space.
Thank you, Mr. Spear. Does that answer your question, Councillor Blanchard?
It does. I want to maybe follow up. Typically, if we were going to put something out like this for put it out to the public, how long would we have to put it out for? Just out of curiosity, what would be the typical time frame?
Typically for items that we know have value, we'd put them out for like a tender, a bidding process for 2 weeks. And then if that's done and no one comes along, then we take whoever wants it, basically. So we had, if you remember, for council last fall, we had a bunch of equipment we put out for sale. Only about half of it was attained. And a couple of people have come along since and offered to buy a couple of them instead of keep going through the process. We've already gone through it once officially, that we just, take whatever can get out of it. In most cases, it's only got a use for one particular purpose. For instance, we sold a Zamboni that we had tried to sell 3 times over the past 2 years. The thing's 25 years old. It's the original one that went with the arena. And I don't even know why the person who bought it wants it, to be honest, but good for them.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Spear. Councillor Blanchard, does that answer your question, or?
Yeah, no,
would you like these receptacles put out for that 2-week tender?
Well, I just, excuse me. I get that there's probably a fairly low value on these. I'm just wondering, for public perception, would it make sense just to put this out the same as we would anything else? And like I said, within 2 weeks, if nobody wants it, then it shouldn't be an issue for Kingsbury Garden to take them. I'm happy that they want them, and I probably, obviously much rather give them to them than to see them go to the landfill. But I just wonder for public perception, should it go the same sort of tender process as everything else? Or like I said, is the value low enough that we would normally have sort of a cutoff where we say it's not worth it and we don't bother? So if that's the case, then I'm happy to go forward and vote in favor. But if not, if we don't really have that sort of cutoff, then I wonder if we should just go the regular public process, tender process.
Mr. Spear?
Well, again, we've had them for 19 years, no one's expressed an interest in them. And it's just a coincidence a little bit that they would take us up on that offer, but it's whatever council wants to do, really. They wouldn't have very much value to anybody anyway, so I just await your direction. Again, staff's recommendation is to give it to Kingsbury, but if you want to offer them out to the public first, by so means.
Council, is there any discussion? Councillor Hurdle?
I don't think we need to necessarily belabor it to death, but I do agree with Councillor Blanchard. We have a policy in place, and I just think because of the parties involved, we should be transparent with it. I would suggest that if it's all 19 or none, that way we don't end up with like 3 or 4 that we just have to deal with at the end of the day. I think that if somebody's interested, we should, follow the policy that we have.
Any other councillors? Yes, Councillor Heenan?
Well, the part that gets me is the fact that Public Works were going to get rid of them without anybody doing anything. They were just going to dispose of them. So in my opinion, there's no value to them. So I'm okay with as it sits.
All right, council.
I guess.
Do we need to have?
Yes, we have to have an
vote then?
amendment. So the open
Okay.
motion right now is to dispose of them to Kingsbury Gardens.
Okay,
Garden.
so we have,
If we have to have an amendment to put them out to tender first and get the support of rest of council in order to do that.
so do you need amendment first for the disposal of those to the 19 to Kingsbury and then amend it? Or do we just do the
Well, you've already got,
proposal to get rid of the 19 to the public?
you've already got a motion on the floor
Mm-hmm.
to have the 19.
And it's already first and
And that's the
seconded.
second. So.
So it's
we
an
require
amendment
An
now.
amendment if we're going to do something else with them.
Okay, so we need an amendment if we wish to do this. Anybody? Council? Councillor Hurdle has amended it that we offer the 19 units to the public first. And then if there is no acceptance of, you want all 19 to go together is what you said, if I understood, then they shall go to the Kingsbury Garden. Would that be the way to word that? Sure. We need it tender within the 2 weeks. Is that okay, council? And we need a seconder for that. We need a seconder for that, please. Mark, Councillor Blanchard, sorry. So it's moved by Councillor Hurdle and seconded by Councillor Blanchard that we offer the 19 receptacles to the people. And if within the 2 weeks period, if there is no offer, then we shall reoffer them to Kingsbury Garden. So first we vote on the amendment. So council, all those in favor of the amendment, say aye, raise your hand. Let me know. So I have 1, I have 2, 3. Okay, and opposed? 1, 2, 3, 4. So that motion was opposed. So now we go back to the original motion and we vote on that and rather than going to landfill, that we offer them to Kingsbury Garden. All those in favor, council? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and opposed? 1. I did 5, 6, sorry. Oh, two opposed. He's abstaining. So what does that mean? He doesn't, it goes as an A. Okay, thank you. So 5-2. So it is carried that Kingsbury Garden will receive 5-2. Did you get the names? Oh, sorry.
Sorry, folks. Just in terms of an abstention, sorry, forgive me.
Yeah,
Does that
it's
count?
a yes
It means
vote.
a yes vote.
Yeah, it's
So,
a yes vote.
and if I just to go back a second, I'm not sure you voted in the initial amendment. So that might have been a tie. That was a tie vote in the beginning. So there would, yeah. Sorry.
But there were 4. Okay, go back. Well, I'm not finished yet.
Okay,
Sorry.
okay.
So
So council, what we had here was
4 to 3.
4 to 4.
Oh, 4 to 4.
Because Councillor Weir was voting.
Oh, he abstained in that
Right,
first one.
which-
Sorry.
Which makes that a
4 to
tie
4. So
vote.
that's a tie vote. So that means I have to vote.
Correct.
Yeah, okay. All right, well, I'm going to vote. Maybe we should have, I don't. I think I will vote in favor of letting the townspeople have the option of these receptacles, because maybe somebody wants them. That's my vote. So that, I guess it would be 5 to 4 then. And so we don't need to do the second vote because it is now overridden.
You have to do the motion as amended now.
Okay, so the motion is amended. And could you read what I stated before? Because I didn't write it all down. Mr.
Yeah.
Nupper?
So it should be the council of the town of St. Andrews approves the tender sale of garbage disposals for a total of 19 to be put out for 2 weeks. Then if no takers, after the 2 weeks, they are given to Kingsbury Garden as amended. Or very close to that.
Yep, that's very good. So, and that vote was, so the vote still stands 5 to 4.
It stands for your amendment. Now you have to.
Now we have to
Revote.
do the vote for Kingsbury Garden receptacles.
No, so your worship, what you did was you had your motion, then you
Yes.
amended it. Now you have to accept
Vote
the
on-
amended motion.
Okay, all right. And do we have to vote again?
Correct.
Okay,
You don't have to read it out. It's been read. You just have to call for the vote.
okay. I'm going to call for the question on the amendment vote. So all those in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now we have 6. So, yeah, 6. 1, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6. I don't have to vote. 6, 2, whatever. Okay.
No, nay, no.
Those not in favor, opposed?
Yeah.
1. This Counselor Heenan.
Yep.
1 nay.
Right.
And
Is there an abstain?
1 abstained.
Abstain?
Yeah, so that's a yes vote.
Thank you.
Counselor Weir abstained again.
You.
Well, I'm glad that's done.
We're done.
We're done. You can come back, your mayor, your worship. Somebody yell at him. Oh, no, Mr. Spear went to get him. Thank you, your worship. And thank you, council, for putting up with me.
Boston Bruins up 1-0. All right, we are into question period. And just to keep it consistent, maybe put a call out to those that are on Zoom, Mr. Nopper. And then after that, we'll come back to any hands that are raised after we check with the room, just for the essence of time.
So anybody on Zoom, can you please raise your hand if you have a question to council in regards to tonight's agenda?
While we're waiting on that, I will open it up to the room. Is there any questions on anything presented this evening? Just come up to the microphone just so the people at home have the benefit of hearing you. Yeah, and please introduce yourself as well. Just
Robert Fisher from the Courier. Mr. Worship, your worship, thank you for the props earlier. We may not be as high profile as my friends at the TV station, but we do try. Just a couple points of clarification, if I might. The tourism levy, that does apply to the RV parks as well. Did I hear that properly?
correct.
Okay. And the 1.1 million, Chris, that you referenced earlier, that is an authorization only at this point. Nothing has been drawn. And is there an expiry date on that?
No.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Saw another hand.
Brenda Waywood.
Hi, Brenda.
earlier this evening, you were discussing zoning bylaws. I'd like to know whether in fact the Shamcook and Bayside rural plans are still in effect for zoning.
They are indeed. They automatically got inherited across the province of New Brunswick for on the places that were essentially joining existing municipalities.
Okay, secondary to that, why are those rural plan documents not available to the public right now? The province has removed them from the local government and environment site, and the town doesn't have them on their site.
That's good to know. Maybe we take that under advisement. We should upload those to the Town of Sanders webpage.
Your worship, we do have hard copies and digital copies at Town Hall, but I'm more than happy to upload.
We'll have that uploaded right away. That's a good point. Thank you very
Okay,
much.
thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay, anything up here online, Mr. Nopper? I don't think so.
You have no raised hands online, and I received no email questions, your worship.
Thank you very much. We're into Councillor and Deputy Mayor's comments. Okay, seeing Deputy Mayor Akaji.
I'll be brief. Because it's already been long, but I want to thank the Anglican Church for the great events, throughout Lent and Easter, especially the Easter dinner. There were a lot of people that traveled from far away to come on Monday for the Easter dinner. And I'd like to thank the people that worked, but especially Ada and Carl Wood, because they did most of the cooking and for these meals. And unfortunately, we ran out of ham because there were so many people, but there were a lot of people that came, and I don't think it'll happen again that they'll run out of the ham anyway, because it was noted. But just to thank those people, because they worked very hard all throughout Lent for breakfasts and for all those meals. And the meals on Friday continue with the Charlotte County group that are doing that, the community services group that are doing it. So there's still meals available for that till the end of May, I believe. So if you're interested on Fridays, come for soup and rolls and fellowship. It's great. Thank you very much, Your Worship.
Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor. One more call for anyone else? Okay, I'm good as well. So at this point, under Local Government 68(1)F, we go into closed session for legal opinion or solicitor privilege information. Could I have a mover to go into closed session? I've got Councillor Hurdle and seconded by Councillor Neal. Any discussion on that? All in favor of going to closed session, please signify by saying aye. That's everyone. We'll give a moment for everyone to leave. Thank you very much for attending this evening. And of course, thank you. I'll need a motion to come out of closed session. Councillor Keenan, seconded by Councillor Hurdle. I'll give that to him because you've been beating him because you're closer all night. All in favor of going into closed session? A motion to adjourn, Deputy Mayor, and I'm looking to the TV for Councillor Blanchard. All in favor of adjourning? On record, go Bruins.